Kurt Warner is one of my all-time favorite quarterbacks. I think those of you who've listened to me for a long time know that I loved Kurt Warner as a quarterback. And for a few years, we debated, on this show, during the off seasons, whether or not he was a Hall of Famer. And I said, he's definitely a Hall of Famer. And the argument against was if he had just gotten, one more, the Cardinals Steelers Super Bowl. But no, he was a Hall of Fame quarterback, great quarterback, loved how smart he played, how good and quick he was from the pocket. He was just flat out one of my all-time favorite quarterbacks, and loved, and I've had him on the show a few times. And yes, I'm reaching out to have him on again after what he said yesterday, and I'll share that with you in a moment. But I do love Kurt Warner, and I love his analysis of football. He gets a lot of pushback, including from other players and other coaches at times on social media, but I like what he does. Thank you, all of you, for sending his analysis of Jaden Daniels' game against Seattle. I got lots of you reaching out to me, and I appreciate that. His belief, by the way, that Jaden has regressed this year, isn't seeing it, isn't processing it, isn't letting it rip. What's interesting to me is how many of you seem to be thrilled, excited about Warner's evaluation. Man, we do have some post-traumatic Snyder syndrome. We really do. It's a real thing. Like last year, it couldn't have been the beginning of something great. It was a total fluke, a total one-off. We're back to where we should be now. Feel much more comfortable in this space. Good morning, everybody. Dan Miller, longtime play-by-play voice of the Detroit Lions. He'll join us at 11. Dan was a show host here on 980 in the early days, in the 90s, of the then Sports Talk 980. Ed Cooley is Georgetown's basketball coach. Georgetown and Maryland play on Friday night in College Park. Ed Cooley will join us at 12:30. We've got some NFL buy and sell. We've got some NFL mid-season predictions. We're going to go back. Max and I are going to go back and look at our preseason predictions from Labor Day week, and we will modify those. We will update those for sure. And yes, we have some trade deadline talk today on the show, including Washington not doing anything, not moving any player, not acquiring any player. It doesn't mean, and let me be very clear on this, it does not mean that they weren't trying. This from Gary. And Gary was one of many, a dozen plus similar responses. Watch this, Kev. And then he links to the Kurt Warner video analysis of Jaden against Seattle. I told you this. He's a running quarterback. Can't win long-term with these guys. Got lucky last year, never really saw it, like Warner said, just made plays off platform all season long. They made a mistake. There were others in that draft they should have selected. Okay, so for those that don't know what I'm talking about, Kurt Warner, who I love, did a 30-minute video analysis of Jaden against Seattle. And he basically picked several plays. It wasn't one or two. There were like 5 or 6 in which he just said Jaden didn't do what he could have done on the play. Now, let me just say real quickly to Gary's specific point about never really saw it, like Warner said, lucky last year. Warner didn't say any of that. Warner actually said the opposite of that. He said, we know that he can do all these things because we watched it last year. This isn't a guy that didn't show us that he could process and throw on time and throw with anticipation. He's just not doing it at the same level he did it last year. At least he didn't, according to Warner, in the game on Sunday night. So, Gary, that was a misrepresentation, really. Kurt Warner didn't say, running quarterback, can't win with him, lucky last year, never really saw it, like Warner said, just made plays off plat. He didn't say that at all. He actually said the opposite of that about Jaden last year and what he's already shown us on tape that he is capable of doing all that. But then he took several plays and said, look, these aren't easy plays, but this is what he should have done. And he really was interesting because I think he was expecting like a lot of pushback, a lot of, hater, mail on this. And so he really soft stepped it a lot. Like he kept saying over and over again, the position's really hard. These things are really hard. But then there were other times where he said, but this is an NFL throw. This is an NFL window. He's made it before, but he's not making it this year. Now, I would, argue that he hasn't made it all year. I think the Chargers game after the first two drives was a lot like what we saw last year with Jaden Daniels. I think there were moments certainly in the Giant game and even the Chicago game as well. But, that aside, it was a critical, analysis of the way Jaden played against Seattle. Now, there were a couple of things. By the way, I think with a guy like Kurt Warner, you have to be open-minded. You have to, listen very carefully. I did think that there were a couple of plays that he showed where he didn't really discuss down and distance. Like there was a play in which it was 3rd and, 17 or 3rd and 20 something after one of the penalties that they had on one of those drives. And I think, in those plays, what we've seen from Jaden in the past on 3rd and super long is he's not going to take the easy thing. He's going to try to create and try to get something downfield and make the play. We saw that last year, how many times, he overcame 3rd and super long or 2nd and super long. But for the most part, I saw what Kurt Warner was describing. I think the missing context, which he, admitted up front, look, there's a lot of reasons for what's going on here. He didn't specify those reasons. We know what those reasons are. They have had a ton of injuries. They haven't been on the field at the same time together very much. The other night, they had receivers out there that are really, 3rd, 4th, 5th receivers, practice squad receivers, not in the NFL receivers. We understand that, it's not like he's, it's not like he's working and has worked at all this year with a full allotment of surrounding pieces. We also understand the context of every time he takes the field, they have to get plays. They've got to make plays because when he comes back out onto the field, the odds are they're going to be down another 7 because of the defense. So there's a lot of context there. But for the most part, for those of you looking for me to come in after all of your social media reach outs to me to say, to knock Kurt Warner or to say Kurt Warner's wrong, that would be insane. Kurt Warner is one of my all-time favorite players. He's a Hall of Famer, and I've actually enjoyed some of his analysis. In fact, last year, his analysis of Jaden Daniels was through the roof, A+ processing, which is why he said, this is stuff he's done before. We saw it all last year. And it doesn't mean that he, didn't see a lot the other night, that he isn't going to see it the next time he's on the field, or that next year isn't going to be a much better year. These things are, evolving things, especially with young players. I am very interested. I will tell you this, and I will bring some of it to the show tomorrow. My guy, Steve Suter, has done such a great job, and he's watched every single play and graded every single player from every single game, except for the opener against the Giants. I had him start with the Green Bay game in week 2. I am very interested to see what he sees, because he did text me during the game, and he said, this is a disaster offensively. Nobody is open. And he actually made another comment. He said, there were plays in which he had the protection, but he doesn't have any trust right now in any of the people that are out on the field. The irony is, too, Steve mentioned to me that he thinks Ertz is just a major liability this year, that this is a retired player playing still in the NFL. And I texted him back and I said, yeah, the funny thing is, I think he's the one guy that Jaden trusts on the field is going to be where he's supposed to be. And Steve, you said, I'll look at that, and maybe that's true, but there's a lot of issues. But I can't wait to hear his in-depth analysis. He'll do it on my podcast today. I'll have it out late this afternoon, and then I'll bring some of it to the radio show tomorrow, especially the part about Jayden Daniels. Steve said a few weeks ago, this team is in major, major trouble because they can't stop anybody. And that's going to, affect the entire football team. They don't have anybody that can cover at all, man or zone. And the big problem with that is their best pass rusher by far, Dorrance Armstrong, is no longer on the team, so they have no pass rush. That's always like, a nice way of saying, oh my God, we're in trouble. You can't cover, but it's okay because you can't rush the passer either. And we can add now, you're not very good at stopping the run. Yeah, look, here's one thing that any analysis of Jayden Daniels or Cliff Kingsbury or anything, one thing is 100% true, and you're not going to back me off it because it's just a fact. The fact is, Washington is a shell of the team that they had planned to put out onto the field this year. And overall, the roster wasn't stacked to begin with, as we know. They're still in the process of trying to build a roster since taking over, a bare cupboard roster when they arrived in January of 2024, January, February of 2024. They are still figuring it out. Yeah, there have been some mistakes. The Lattimore thing is going to be number one here in the first 21 months of Adam Peters. That is the number one mistake. At this point, it's irreversible, I think. I mean, with Lattimore done for the rest of the year, he's probably not going to be back here next year. I don't think he is. I guess it's possible. But the more likely situation is that somebody like Lattimore at this point in his career where he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and when he's been healthy, he hasn't performed at a high level, he's going to have to probably learn how to play safety to stay in the league. He's got ball skills. He's always had ball skills. Can he play safety? That's a different mindset, but maybe that's his next move. I don't know if it's here, but that's the one more than any other that we can sort of definitively say a year after the trade, that's one you'd like to give back, no doubt. But I'm not going to change the way I felt in the moment and try to, trick anybody. I liked the trade in the moment. I thought they needed help on defense. It was the only way that they were going to be able to make a run once they got there. And at the time, it certainly looked like they were going to get there. They were 7-2. And the team's, major flaw was defense. Now their biggest flaw defensively was stopping the run. But they had major issues everywhere, and they added a player for a cost, no doubt, that was a short-term, fixer, supposedly, and beyond just a rental because he was under contract. So I didn't mind the trade. That's the one right now that we can be sure about. Everything else, by the way, is pure and utter speculation, flipping a coin. The young players in the draft, we've got to stop declaring. I know I've declared on Jayden, and I'm not backing off that. I saw enough last year. I saw enough in college. I'm a big believer, and nothing that's happened this year has even come close, including Kurt Warner's very justifiable, logical film analysis. Nothing's making me back off. Jayden Daniels is a star quarterback and is going to be. I think we are in one of those seasons that NFL teams have. Cincinnati's had it. Baltimore's had it, in which, you just can't overcome the number of injuries. And in Washington's case, it's not just the number, it's to whom these injuries have happened. And that is to all of their frontline starters and best players and most meaningful contributors. Yeah, there are other reasons for sure. I was on with Linnell last night on 106.7 The Fan. And, we were talking about the defense. And I said, look, I don't know that the defense was ever going to be good this year. I think we've seen enough, even with the losses, Will Harris, Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise, other players being in and out, etc. Even with those losses, I don't think it was going to be a good defense. I think there was a major jumping of the gun over the summer talking about the secondary. early in the season against the Giants and the Raiders. I did think that there was a chance it was going to be a better run-stopping team with the additions that they had made, Kinlaw and Wise in particular. Even Eddie Goldman, who at times has played well in that role. And I thought that there was a chance that, with Armstrong and with Von Miller and with, a few others, that they could scheme up some occasional timely pass rush. But I think the one thing, I didn't buy into the early hype about the defense. Most of you know that. But I'm also not saying that with respect to the defense, that injuries cost the defense like a really good season. I think the injuries cost the defense a better season than last year's season, but still not a really good defense. And the problem with that this year is the opponents they were playing, the quarterbacks they were playing. It was going to be a bigger issue if the schedule panned out the way it looked, and so far it has for the most part, in terms of, not playing the Chiefs without Mahomes, not playing the Seahawks without their, weapons. We're getting the full allotment of Detroit. We got the full allotment of Dallas. Lamb was back for that game. It's been that kind of, a season. So I do think that as we sit here at the midway point, number one is injuries. Undoubtedly, there's no way. Like, if you've watched the NFL for more than 5 minutes, this happens, and it's happened to Washington. It's the number one reason they're 3-6. But I'm also not saying that they'd be 6-3 had they remained healthy, because I think defensively, again, it may have been better than last year, but it wouldn't have been good enough against some of these opponents. And maybe it'd be 4-5 or 5-4, wouldn't be 3-6, whether it's the Bears game or the Cowboys game or, the Atlanta game, or even a better effort against Seattle. It wouldn't be 3-6, but it would be a fight this year to get to, the number to put them back into the postseason, because I don't think defensively they were going to be very good. Healthy or not healthy, they're clearly worse, a lot worse, without the players they've lost. There's no doubt about that. Dorrance Armstrong would be number one. But here's the other thing about the defense, and Linnell and I were talking about this last night, and we sort of identified this early in the season. The problem defensively, and this is something they're going to have to draft more likely than not, you've got to have a player defensively that has a chance to wreck a game. You have to have a defensive player. They're hard to find. Most teams don't have them. Okay, most teams don't have the TJ Watts, the Myles Garretts, the, Micah Parsons. Understood. But you've got to find a player that can lift up the entire defense. And when we were talking about Myles Garrett in the offseason and whether or not he would have been available, obviously that would have been a game changer defensively. Of course, he probably would have gotten hurt had he been playing for our team this year. But they've got to find that player, because even with, a healthy Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise, Will Harris, etc., they just haven't had a player that scares an offensive coordinator. As good as Armstrong was, and he was excellent in these games, nobody scares the other side on defense. And the only person, to be fair, on offense that scares the other side is the quarterback. And so they've got to find players that scare the other team. That's got to be the goal. I understand, last year, let's build up the trenches. They added Tunsil. They traded for him. They picked a first-round tackle. Defensively, they added size with Kinlaw in particular, Wise on the edge. They were hoping to certainly shore it up and become better there. They also need to continue to do that. And I'm jumping ahead to our, late December, January, and February conversations, but they've really got to find a scare player on offense in addition to the quarterback and somebody on defense. That's going to be huge for them moving forward. But I'm very much looking forward to Suter's film breakdown. I want to hear what Steve says. Steve has watched every single play of every game, over the last, starting with the Green Bay game. I think he's got a really good sense of what's on the field, what Jaden has trusted before, what he's trusting or seeing now. And I'll bring that to the show. But I thought Kurt Warner's overall analysis on some of those plays, I saw it. I saw what he was talking about. Now, for me, ultimately, I think it comes down more likely than not, and Warner didn't dispute this, to perhaps trust and context. Interesting. And again, I mean, I can't tell you, like Gary's email to me. It just over the last couple of weeks, the fire Peters, fire Quinn, Jaden's not good. I just can't believe we are in this spot right now. I just can't get to those spots that quickly. From a game against the Chargers, in which literally, how long ago was that game? A month ago, when they played the Chargers at SoFi and they won easily 27-10. And off that game, it was like, whew, Jaden was sharp, looked really good after those first two drives. They ran the ball. Krosky Merritt's going to be the NFL's, offensive rookie of the year. They got pressure on Herbert. They disrupted him. They picked him off at the goal line. Sanders Still's turnaround game. Trey Amos looks like the defensive rookie of the year. Certainly a guy that's going to be in the conversation. Von Miller got sacks and he's coming to life. All these things, and that was just a month ago. Yeah, they don't have, all of the players healthy that they had in that game. That's also true because in that game, Dorrance Armstrong had 2 sacks and 3 tackles for loss in that game against a team that had a banged up offensive line. So I can't live that way, week to week, month to month, not in this league, not after being a fan of it for as long as I have been, like many of you, and knowing how quickly things change and how context matters. And in this particular case, there's a lot involved in the context around 3 and 6. All right. When we come back, we'll get to what turned out to be an incredible trade deadline day, but just not anything involving our team. That's next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. We are free and live on the Odyssey app. Don't forget, you can watch this very radio show on the Team 980's YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there. That really helps us out. All right, what do I got? Two things from basketball last night. Number one is this. Derek Queen, Maryland's superstar freshman from last year, has played well for New Orleans. They're a bad team. They started 0-6, but they got their first win last night thanks to Derek Queen's 12 points in the fourth quarter to go along with 3 steals in the fourth quarter. He finished the game with 12 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals in 18 minutes to lead the Pelicans back from a 6-point deficit to open up the fourth quarter to a 116-112 win. He's been playing well for you Terp fans. Derek Queen looks the part at the NBA level. By the way, once again, Zion Williamson hurt in New Orleans. The other basketball, what do you got? I have for you is you guys remember Carlos Boozer, longtime NBA player, great player at Duke, early 2000s. Carlos Boozer's got twin boys. Cameron is one of those players. Cameron is one of the projected, top 2 or 3 picks in next year's draft after a year at Duke. He was for a few years the de facto default number 1 pick in the 2026 draft. There are a couple of other players that have snuck in front of him, but he's going to be in the conversation for a top 2 or 3 pick in the draft. I mentioned that because hopefully the Wizards will maybe get better lottery luck this coming season. Cameron Boozer made his debut with Duke last night in a game against Texas. They trailed Texas 33-32 at halftime, and Boozer had 0 points at halftime. John Shire apparently lit him up at halftime and said, "What are you doing? You're playing way too soft." So he came out in the second half and had 15 points, 13 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 assists, and a block shot, leading Duke to a 75-60 win over Texas. I mentioned the other night Koa Pete from Arizona, the freshman that had one of the great freshman debuts in NCAA history. 30 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, couple of block shots. He was sensational. Boozer last night in the second half was great. He's a fun player to watch. His brother is on the team too. He played a little bit last night. He's different. Cameron Boozer is 6'8", 250. Caden Boozer is like 6'4", more of a guard. Cameron Boozer plays similarly to this guy Koa Pete. So we'll see, as the season progresses, if any of these guys become obvious, contenders for the number 1 overall pick. All right. Trade deadline has come and gone. Washington didn't make any moves. By the way, there's still no significant or updated information on Jaden Daniels. But there is a sense that I get from talking to a few people that this is not going to be season ending. This is going to be, a 3 to 4 week injury, something like that. So if I'm assuming, what time does Quinn speak today, Max? Sorry, I didn't look that up today. Is it 12:30? Are we going to carry that?
I believe it's around noon or 12:30. I'm going to double check for you real quick.
Yeah, because we definitely want to get the update on Jaden Daniels at the beginning of that press conference. I'm assuming there will be some update. My sense of it, just talking to a few people, is this is not like a massive season-ending, serious, long-term concern. In fact, it's something that will probably end up being 3 to 4 weeks, tops. So
the media schedule says Dan Quinn will appear before practice in the media annex at 12:30. Quarterback Jaden Daniels will be available after practice in the media annex. We'll see if that holds up. But yeah, it is on the schedule.
He's not playing against Detroit on Sunday afternoon. I promise you that. And then I would certainly doubt that he's going to play against the Dolphins in Madrid. But after Madrid, there's a bye week. That would be 3 games missed if you include the bye, 3 weeks missed. And then they've got Denver on Sunday night Thanksgiving weekend at home on Sunday Night Football again. Prime time's not been good to them. They are 0 this year, right? Green Bay, Chicago, and now Seattle. I didn't miss one, did I? Kansas City, 0-4. 0-4 in prime time this year.
Doing great.
And they do have one more scheduled primetime game, although the Philadelphia game on December 20th, it's a Saturday. There are 2 games there, and they haven't identified times. One of them is going to be in primetime. One of them is going to be like a 4 o'clock start or 4:25 start, 4:30 start, something like that. The other one would be 8:15. So maybe if they pulled off a stunner on Sunday, Jared Goff, gets hurt, they get early, and somehow Detroit fumbles, away a 24-21 loss and a shocker. The NFL produces them every week, people. Every week there's a shocker. Every week there's a huge favorite that goes down. Last week, Carolina. Why not this week, Detroit? Then you go to Miami, and somehow you beat a bad Dolphins team, and you're back. Am I really doing this? Am I doing playoff scenario talk? Anyway, we'll find out from, I would imagine today, what the expectation is. But I from what I think, my gut would tell me it's not going to be season ending, and it's probably more in the 3 to 4, 3 to 5 range. Now, what happens when he's ready to play physically if they are at that point 3-8 or 3-9? I don't know. We can cross that bridge when we get to it. My immediate reaction right now in the moment is no matter what their record is, when he's healthy enough to play, he should play. All right. So Washington, not busy yesterday, trade deadline. I thought there were possibilities. We talked about some of them. Deron Payne, Andrew Wiley, Allegretti. Paulie brought up Tunsil. Thank God they didn't trade Tunsil. Although, who knows? I mean, for what some of these guys were getting in terms of, the cost and the draft choices back, maybe it would have worked out. But I don't think you're going to trade a guy that's been a top 3 pass blocking left tackle in the NFL this year. So let me just say, surprised Washington didn't make a move. I thought that there would be, a couple of picks, that would have fell into them for a Deron Payne, for an Andrew Wiley, for a Nick Allegretti, and maybe even for a guy like Bobby Wagner, somebody like Wagner, maybe even somebody like Von Miller, who knows, where you'd get a conditional late rounder. But that didn't happen. So they remain with 6 draft picks at this point for next year, a 1st, 3rd, 5th, 2 6th rounders, and a 7th rounder. They got a 6th rounder for Brian Robinson Jr. The 2nd and 4th went to Houston in the Tunsil trade. So they have one less pick than you're typically allotted. You get 7. But, it's not just one less. It's no 2nd and no 4th rounder. Sure, you could potentially trade down from wherever they'll be, and right now they'd be top 10 in the draft and acquire more picks. But, again, that's another bridge to cross when we get there, because if there's like a superstar pass rusher, that they have access to get to, I don't want to trade back. So let's start with the big trades, okay? The Sauce Gardner to Indianapolis, where the Colts get one of the best cover corners in the game. And I would definitely overlook personally some of the recent struggles. When you're on bad football teams, I heard somebody say this yesterday, and I thought it was so true. He's been penalized a lot for defensive holds, DPIs, et cetera. When you're on bad teams, you get called for a lot of those. When you're on good teams with other good players, you tend not to. When you're asked to basically do everything at that position, you're going to get called for some penalties. Sauce Gardner is an outrageous talent. I think most NFL fans know that. The Jets get back 2 first-rounders, a 26 first-rounder and a 27 first-rounder, and add Mitchell, the wide receiver who fumbled, kind of lost control of the ball as he was crossing the goal line in their loss, Indy's loss earlier this year to the Rams. Shocker. Nobody had Sauce Gardner being dealt. He just got paid, 4 years, $120.4 million. I was reading this morning that the contract was structured where it was back-end loaded, and so the Jets It gave the Jets some flexibility, not that they were intending to use it, but in the event that it got to that point, they could, use it, and they did. And now you look at a Colts team that is 7-2, trading away the next 2 first-rounders when you are Chris Ballard, the GM, and you're the Indianapolis Colts. Isn't it kind of an admission that you're all in on Daniel Jones? That this is your guy, that you've decided you can go win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones? He did have 5 turnovers against the Steelers last week, which was something that, he's been prone to do in his past. He's played very well. That team, we talked about this team before the season started, whether it was going to be Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, that if they got any kind of quarterback play, that's a hell of a roster. You've got Jonathan Taylor. You've got good receivers, Pittman Jr., Pierce, Downs. You've got the tight end from Penn State that you had drafted. You've got an excellent offensive line led by maybe the best guard in football in Quentin Nelson. You've got great defensive players, Buckner, Pay. They drafted the kid from UCLA last year. Latu was his name. I don't really know if he's played well. Franklin's played well. They've got good players defensively. Now you add Sauce Gardner to that team, and the Colts aren't playing around. They're in the same situation Washington was in last year, right? 7-2 at the trade deadline, and they went for it with a corner. Now, Sauce Gardner is a better corner than Lattimore was, and obviously a lot more pricey too. But they're going for it. Now, Sauce Gardner is under contract, so it's not just this year, but it's moving forward. I kind of like the trade from both sides, although I'll tell you what, man, when you give up a great corner, it's hard to find another one. There are a couple of positions in this league. When you have them, you got to be careful if you move on from them. Quarterback, obviously. Left tackle, obviously. Major defensive end, edge, or interior, game wrecker. And, you don't have true shutdown corners anymore. Pat Surtain's not one. Sauce Gardner isn't one. But when you've got an excellent, excellent high-level talent at cover corner, those are positions that are really hard to find. And by the way, it takes a couple of years to develop into those players. Gardner and Surtain have been the exceptions to the rule where they've been good right away. More times than not, the greatness in a corner shines year 2, year 3, year 4. That's why, with Sanderstill or with Amos, just, deep breath. It's a tough position to play. It's a tough position to play when you've got no pass rush too. So it takes time for those players. But that's a good football team. That is a good football team, the Colts are, and they're going for it, But I also think it says when you trade your next 2 first rounders, I know that this one, more likely than not, will be a late first rounder. They're all in on Daniel Jones. That's the NFL for you, boys and girls. Nobody had Daniel Jones having the year that he's had to lead the Colts into Super Bowl contention, or I should say into number 1 seed contention in the AFC, where perhaps the Super Bowl in the AFC might have to go through Indianapolis. Now, long way to go. Their schedule gets more difficult, and they just lost a game in which Daniel Jones turned the ball over 5 times. So who knows? The one thing about Daniel Jones, man, I think it's been true about him throughout his career. When he has a setback or two, he's lost confidence quickly. That happened in New York. He had that great year, and then a couple of bad things happened. Plus, they had injuries, remember, and didn't have guys to throw to. And all of a sudden, he looked like he was, deer in the headlights week in and week out. We'll see, though. The idea when they, it was it's a 1-year, $14 million deal that he signed. That's called bridge quarterback contract. So they're going to have to sign him too, which I'm sure now that they've given away their next 2 first rounders, they're going to. But remember, Daniel Jones signed a 1-year, $14 million deal to be a bridge to Anthony Richardson. Just interesting. That trade really was a bombshell, no doubt. The other one, of course, was Dallas. I'll just get right to it. I don't understand this trade at all. Quinnen Williams is a great player. The Cowboys gave up a first, a second, and Maisie Smith. I don't get it. When I saw this trade yesterday, I'm like, yeah, I know Dallas stinks on defense. I do. And Quinnen Williams is an excellent player, and he's an all-around D tackle. He's a pass rusher and a run stopper. He's been one of the best in the game. I just don't get why Dallas thinks they're Quinnen Williams away from contending. Okay, you put Quinnen Williams next to Kenny Clark. They added the linebacker from Cincinnati, Logan Wilson. Oh, now we've got a defense. Okay, you're 3-5-1. You're 3-5-1. Is that the player along with the linebacker that you added that all of a sudden you're going to be a shutdown defense, or you're going to be a good enough defense to beat the Chiefs, the Lions, the Chargers, the Eagles, all of whom remain on the schedule? Really? Maybe. Did I say this yesterday in our NFL Around the NFL thing? I like Dak Prescott. I just don't love Dak Prescott. I felt that way throughout the years. I loved him at Mississippi State and thought he was going to be a good NFL quarterback. I remember, one of those bold prediction segments. I really liked him at Mississippi State. But as a pro, Dak's best is, number 10, number 9. But overall, he's more like 13, 14, 12. I just don't know that Dak is that quarterback. And God, they have everything on offense. Everything on offense. They got the receivers. They got the O-line. They got a tight end. They got a running back this year, another young running back in Jaden Blue that's starting to play well. Their defense stinks. We understand that. He was not good in the game against Arizona. I mean, obviously the odds makers had that one figured out. You knew that with the point spread, that they thought Arizona was more than capable of winning the game. But I thought Dak just looked off, took a bunch of sacks, didn't unload it. He's also had games in which it's like, wow, the Green Bay game, the 40-40 tie, the thing where he went back and forth with Russell Wilson in week 2 in the 40-37 overtime game. I just don't. Dallas parting with that on the draft pick front I think it's crazy. Maybe they turn their whole season around. If they had beaten the Cardinals Monday night, Max, if they had beaten the Cardinals and they were sitting at 4-1, I would have understood the deal. But to me, it reeks of Jerry's days. I mean, I'm, his age, I think he's healthy for the most part, and hopefully he lives to 115. But it sort of reeks a little bit of Jerry thinking, I got to get this done now. I got to get this done now. Abe Pollin with the deal with Gill and, the changing of the coach and going with the veteran coach. I got to see my team do it this year or next year. I mean, the good news about Quinnen Williams is he's not just a rental, clearly. He's under contract. He's an excellent player. Is he going to be the difference between the Cowboys at 3-5-1 right now? And by the way, needing to get to, let's just say, 10-6-1 to make the playoffs. Is that right? Because I don't know that 9-7-1 will get it done. So they've got to win 7 of their final 8 games to get to 10. Right there, 3-5-1.
Yeah.
So they need to win 7 of their final 8 to make the postseason this year. Do you think that's fair?
I think that's fair, given how it looks like it's going to shake out.
They've got that tie. 10-6-1 is better than 10-7.
It's true.
So you'd finish in front of the 10-7 teams. Can they win 7 of their final 8 games? Man, I don't think so. They play the Chiefs. They play the Raiders off this bye week, on Monday Night Football, November 17th. Then on a short week, they welcome the Eagles to town. Then on a super short week, they welcome the Chiefs to town for a Thanksgiving Day game. And then, oh, by the way, a week later on Thursday Night Football, they go to Detroit to face the Lions. Then they have the Vikings at home on a Sunday night, the Chargers at home, Washington on Christmas Day. Who knows what Washington will look like at that point? And they close out the Giants. There's no way they're winning 7 of the final 8 with Quinnen Williams added to the team. He's a great player.
Quinnen Williams don't play corner.
He doesn't cover. He'll help with the pass rush. There's no doubt about that. He will help with the pass rush. I don't know. That to me, if Washington had made that trade in Dallas's position with their team, I would have been pissed. Again, 4-4-1, I'm like, okay, fine. Can we win 6 of the final 8 to get to 10-6 with a much better defense, and he can provide that? Takes time, too, after these trades before these players really get comfortable. And then the trade that I think I liked the most was the Seattle Seahawks acquiring wide receiver Rashid Shaheed for a 4th and a 5th round pick. Rashid Shaheed was one of the guys we had talked about for Washington, when the season was still kind of in maybe a buy mode at the trade deadline. Man, this guy can fly. He can fly. And now you're adding him to that team with JSN, with Cooper Kupp, who'll be coming back. He'll be your possession guy. How about the rookie Torrey Horton against us the other night? That was his first, because Kupp was out, that was his first real opportunity. Catches 2 touchdowns. I mean, everybody's catching 2 touchdowns against us. But I think Seattle has a really good chance in the NFC. And I think that was an absolute killer acquisition at the trade deadline for them. And 4th and 5th rounder to get that kind of speed on the field. I wonder if they'll have him back on kickoff returns, because he's super dangerous. Is that, the guy that they had returning kicks, Seattle did, was actually hurt on Monday night. They were missing him in the game, and he was the only guy, I think, average-wise, that had a higher average than McCaffrey. I'm forgetting his name. Looking it up right now. He was out the other night. Derek Young, number 83. I talked about him a little bit on Friday in the preview. He had been an excellent, I think he's number 1 in average yards per kickoff return this year, and number 2 was McCaffrey going into the game. But he did not play. He was inactive on the game. So him and Shaheed being back, Shaheed being, a guy that will take the top off a defense. I mean, when we do our midseason corrections here on the show, I got Seattle as a deep, deep into the postseason team. I think Washington's best opponent this year, did the very best opponent. I thought it was going to be after week 2 that it was going to be Green Bay. So subject to change, of course. But I think the best team they played this year is the team they played Sunday night. Now, they were in no condition to play that team, but I don't know, had they everybody been on the field and Washington been clicking on all cylinders heading into it, that would have been a very difficult game. Seattle's really, really good. And they've got, still in their division, the Rams twice. That'll determine the division. I don't think the 49ers, we'll see. Maybe they'll hang in there. The Rams are favored in Santa Clara on Sunday by 3.5. That tells you what the odds makers think of the Rams, and also that the 49ers' overall injury situation, while improving, they've had enough to get by teams like the Giants, Falcons, and Cardinals and Saints, but they don't think they can get by the Rams at home on Sunday. Big game for the Rams, because if they were to lose that game, that's a sweep by the 49ers over the Rams. Other trades of note, I mean, it was a busy trade deadline deal for sure. What were some of the others? The edge rusher from Cleveland to Chicago, Tryon Shoyinka, that was like a 6th round pick, something like that. Nothing major. I gave you the three big ones: the Gardner deal, the Quinnen Williams deal, and the Rashid Shaheed deal. What am I missing from the trade deadline? Oh, Jacoby Myers ended up going to Jacksonville from the Raiders for a 4th and a 6th rounder. Jacoby Myers, one of those receivers that's been out there, kind of thought of as a potential trade guy. Some of the guys that we thought, look, the Eagles, by the way, we didn't mention this. They've been very busy. They acquired Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins. Love him for a 3rd-round pick over the weekend. And Jair Alexander was acquired. Eagles, once again, super busy trade deadline. They got Alexander for a 7th-rounder, and they had to give a 6th back to the Ravens. And then they got Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips is a player, man. He's one of those long, angular, tall, edges who he really can create problems. Have loved him since he came into the league. 1st-rounder out of the U, right? Out of the U. Jalen Phillips was, I don't know, 2019, 2020, something like that. All right. Dan Miller has been the longtime play-by-play voice of the Detroit Lions. He's going to join us next. I do want to tell you about what Window Nation has going on right now. If you want your home to be comfortable year-round, your family protected, and an investment you can feel great about for years to come, Window Nation's end-of-year sale is something you should take advantage of. It's underway. You can save big on windows that make you comfortable year-round, save you money year-round. Right now, 50% off on all window styles. Plus, you can get 0% financing for 5 years, and your total price includes Window Nation's professional one-day installation. They're in and out of your home in a day or less. Your home is cleaner when they leave it than when they entered it. Window Nation's proven quality windows are so good, you're going to save on lower utility bills. We've got our first cold snap coming up next week. I don't know if you're paying attention to the long range. We're going to be in like the low 40s and the 20s at night, and the heaters are going to be running. If you've got older windows, it costs you more to heat your home. Simply put, get new windows, it costs you less to heat your home. Window Nation's got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. That's a real peace of mind when choosing the right company to upgrade your home. 45,000 5-star reviews and a 96% customer satisfaction rating. Prefer to hear what other customers have to say about Window Nation? Check out some of those 45,000 5-star reviews. Don't wait. Window Nation's end-of-year sale is your chance to save big with 50% off on all window styles, 0% financing for 5 years. Sale ends soon. Visit windownation.com to get started today. That's windownation.com.
All right, it is Wednesday, November 5th. Frankie Louvu's suspension was lifted last night. Instead, he will be fined $100,000, likely his final warning on the hip drop tackle issue. Some more news out of Ashburn. The Commanders have signed Treylon Burks and Sheldon Day to the 53-man roster and signed cornerback Trey Hawkins and safety Daryl Worley to the practice squad. NFL trade deadline wrapped up yesterday. Big moves coming out of Indianapolis, trading for cornerback Sauce Gardner from the Jets, plus the Cowboys made a move for trading for Quinnen Williams, also from the Jets, who engaged in quite a fire sale yesterday. Tonight, Caps get underway, take on the St. Louis Blues. Rasmus Sandin expected to make his return from the IR after he suffered an upper body injury 2 weeks ago. No Pierre-Luc Dubois for the Caps, as he may miss an extended period of time due to a lower body injury, not expected to be season-ending, but still determining whether or not he'll need surgery. Logan Thompson expected to be between the pipes tonight on night one of a back-to-back. Puck drop is at 7:30. Pregame coverage gets underway at 7:15 over on 106.7 The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Skins and Lions Sunday in Landover, 425. Not exactly the matchup that we were hoping it would be when schedule makers identified it as the big game in Week 10, all the way back in April. Washington 3-6. Detroit coming in off a loss to the Vikings as a 9-point favorite at home. Dan Miller's with us. Dan, of course, the longtime voice of the Lions, and many years on Fox Channel 2 in Detroit, and one of the early pioneers of sports talk radio in this town, one of the best during the 90s, teamed up with Doc all of those years on this very station. And, I'm sitting here reading your Twitter bio. First of all, is that Adam, what's his face from the Counting Crows?
That is Adam Duras, correct. Yeah. It was at a concert before he cut his hair or removed his hair, because it wasn't his. But that's him.
He's, I think I'm right about this. He's from Baltimore. I think he grew up in Baltimore and then moved to Northern California, where they started that band. Am I right about that or not?
Yep. It's in some of his songs that is in fact correct. Yeah.
But in reading your Twitter bio, you write, I don't take my Twitter too seriously, nor should you. Opinions may change in 10 minutes. And, that's really the nature of the NFL. It's like, don't be too sure. Like the weather, around here in this league changes every 10 minutes. And your team's a perfect example of that, last week, right?
Yeah, well, I like to say that we all, in this business, we have a lot of final opinions, and then we have final opinions to replace those. So it's, that's what we do. I mean, I think that's what we as sports fans do. We ride the roller coaster, and you can feel great one minute, not so great another minute, and it can feel like the walls are caving in.
Nothing changes as quickly as things in this particular league do. I think, in mentioning that, Dan, I think it's even more severe now in terms of the declarations week to week. It's like nobody's learned from the past. I think there's more of a recency bias in today's, and that may be because of social media, and maybe that it just sort of magnifies it. But I think that, people are so quick to declare something as, he stinks, that team stinks, only to a week or two later be on the complete opposite side.
That's because we're inundated by it. We are overwhelmed with opinions everywhere we look, from what you do to what I do to what they do on ESPN all morning and all day. It's everywhere, and it's everybody having an opinion. And it almost feels like you need to find a side. You pick a side when it comes to those arguments, and then you kind of lock in with people that agree with you and argue with the people that don't. There's no middle ground anymore. There's no patience anymore. Everything has to be decided by what just happened or what's going to happen. So I think it's just the way that we have been programmed now, and the way that we are, the information is disseminated and the way it's changed. It just is so much more volatile. Our opinions, the ups and downs that our teams go through. There used to be patience, I think, more so than there is now for players, for teams, but it just isn't available anymore because everybody's got this 24-hour news cycle to fill, and you fill it more now than ever with discussion, and beyond discussion, significant opinions.
Yeah, and there's no doubt when you do, what a lot of us do, you can't be without an opinion, because that's just not good content. More times than not. But, it's interesting because for those that don't know, Dan's from here, grew up in Northern Virginia, I'm pretty sure, and was a fan of this team. And the PTSD of the Snyder era still exists, Dan, because it's not everybody, but if you can believe it, after the greatest season in 34 years last year, 60 minutes from the Super Bowl, 9 weeks into this season, we got a big contingent of fans that want to fire Adam Peters, fire Dan Quinn, and already say that Jaden Daniels is going to be a bust because he can't stay healthy. It's amazing. And really what's happened with this team, if you followed it, they have been decimated with injuries this year.
Yeah, we went through it last year. We were crushed by injuries last year. They still figured out a way to win 15 games, but they were running on fumes at the end of the season. And it catches up to you. It's so hard to just keep saying next man up. And it's what you have to do when you roll the next guy out there. But sooner or later, you're out of bodies. And the bodies that you're putting out there are not of the quality of the guys that helped you make that run last year. In the Lions case, they won 15 games last year, but you take the eyeball test of where they were in particular defensively over the last 6 weeks of the season. They just couldn't stop anybody. And they got a big win over Minnesota in week 18. But, as I've said before, that had a lot to do with Sam Darnold, too, who had a really bad game. And the Lions probably still would have won, but that game should have been closer than what the final score said. So, no, I get it. And there's not patience. I mean, look, yesterday the Lions didn't do anything at the trade deadline. There are people that are just up in arms with Brad Holmes right now for not making a move. And I get it, but you also have to look at him and say, okay, maybe he just thought there wasn't anything that made sense. Maybe he just thought there wasn't anything that was going to make the team better than what he has there right now versus the price that he'd have to give up. So, look, we're coming off 15 wins, making the playoffs, winning 2 straight division titles, which around here, believe me, is a different way of living. So, and it's the same thing. People are angry that it didn't happen. And, we had a baseball team that had a good season and people were up in arms about the trade deadline that the Tigers had. So, I just think we all have the ability to be louder than we ever were. And that includes fans on social media and all the outlets. So I think we hear it more now than we ever have before. And it also just gives people the platform so that we understand exactly how they're feeling. And there were certainly people that probably felt like this 15 or 20 years ago when their teams had their ups and downs. It just wasn't as prevalent that we were all exposed to it.
Yeah. You went back to last year, and that was the last time I had you on, which was the lead up to the divisional round game. And look, Washington got a Tampa team that was injured on defense and got a Detroit team. And we all noticed, everybody noticed how decimated it was on defense. I remember they gave up nearly 50 to Buffalo. They gave up like 40 to San Francisco, who couldn't score against anybody late in the year. And so the timing of that game was perfect. And then you had the turnovers on offense. I'm curious, and I think a lot of our fans are curious, is this being viewed in Detroit as some sort of, get even revenge game?
I don't think it is. Last year was kind of just this really strange year where you were trying to figure out, kind of how that team won 15 games. And you're watching guys just go to the injured list every week. I mean, there was one game, they had 4 guys that had signed that week and hadn't even been in practice for 3 days, and they were playing on Sunday on defense. And it was just like, this is insane. So, last year was really disappointing to lose that game. But it wasn't something that you couldn't necessarily see coming, because you mentioned the Buffalo game. From the Buffalo game on, they were giving up over 30 points a game. They just couldn't stop anybody. And the offense, as you mentioned, had a down day. Credit Washington. I think when you get to the end of the year, you look for teams that are playing their best football. Washington was. The Lions weren't. And that was a bad matchup for them. And they just didn't have the legs left to make a run again in the playoffs at that point. So it's a long way of saying, I don't think necessarily, while that stung, and it was, one that nobody wanted to, obviously deal with at the time, they're coming off a bad loss to the Vikings. I think that's got people much more, worried right now than getting even with Washington. And plus, look, we can see what's going on with the Commanders. It's not the same team that it was that faced the Lions in the playoffs. They've got problems of their own. Now, we're not going to feel sorry for you because we got issues that we're dealing with right now on the offensive line. And that was really probably, and this probably goes to answer your question more than anything else, one of the worst games we've seen a Dan Campbell team play against Minnesota, because they really fell apart on offense, defense, and special teams, and that just hasn't happened. There's always been one unit that's been able to pick them up, or even in the midst of a game, they've been able to figure out a way to win, and they almost did. I mean, they had a chance to win that game. They ended up losing by 3, but I think you have a lot of people that are wondering, hey, was that a sign of things to come? or are they going to be able to get out of this thing? Because, they're 5-3. The division's going to be tough. The NFC is bunched up. So they've got their work to do just to, get to where they want to be, which is ultimately maybe winning another division title, certainly getting a wild card spot if they can do that. But I think this is looked at as, okay, guys, that wasn't acceptable. The coaching staff said it wasn't acceptable. Dan Campbell said basically it's on him. They didn't play good enough. I think this is just a game where people want to see if they bounce back much more than they want to see if they can get even for last year.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, the loss at Arrowhead, I was like, I think I just watched the two best teams in the league. Of course, wait 10 minutes, it changes, but I'm like, the Lions are legit. Then you pounded Tampa. So what did happen specifically? And do you think, because you didn't answer your own question, which is, was it just a one-game aberration, or is it something that should concern Lions fans?
Going into that Chiefs game that you mentioned, the Lions were number one in the NFL in scoring. They had 17 points in that game, which was just, you knew that's not going to be enough to beat Patrick Mahomes. And then they played Tampa, and even in that game, it came out feeling like, while the defense played really well, the offense left a lot out there. And then that game on this past Sunday against Minnesota, the offense wasn't good. They never adapted to the pressure that Minnesota was putting on them. And the strength of this team since Dan Campbell arrived and what he built was that offensive line. And it was Ragnow in the middle, Decker on one side, Sewell on the other side, and you had some moving around at guards. But it was, without a doubt, you can talk about Goff, who's been terrific, and Gibbs, who's been great, and Amon-Ra, who's one of the best. But that offensive line was the engine of this team. It's what made them go. There's no Frank Ragnow this year. And I think that game against Minnesota was one of those games where you're like, man, they really missed that dude in the middle of that line, deciphering what Minnesota's doing, getting everybody in position, and then his ability to just play once the ball is snapped. So the question is, can they get that offensive line together to be a strength, because they do need that. The running game keys everything they do. And if that offensive line isn't clicking, then that running game is going to be the same. Then Jared, who's one of the best on play action in the league, that's not as effective. So I think there are questions that have to be answered about this team. The defense has been better than it was a year ago in a lot of key categories, getting the quarterback on the ground, taking the ball away. They've been doing a really nice job of that. But offensively, they're down 20 spots from where they were last year on third down. They're just not nearly as effective at keeping drives going. And I just think we're all waiting to see, okay, can this offensive line become cohesive as one? And now you're going into a week. We don't know if Sewell's going to play. We don't know if Decker's going to play. We'll know more after practice. But 4 of their 5 offensive linemen in that game needed medical treatment last week. So you already know Mahogany is out until at least late December. That's one guard down. Ratledge left and came back. So I need to know who's going to be playing out there. Then the bigger question is, how is that offensive line going to play the rest of the way? And I think that's going to go a long way towards dictating where this team goes from here.
By the way, just in talking about Gibbs and mentioning him, I had a flashback to the playoff game again, because I remember coming in here after the game and just saying, I don't understand that why Gibbs didn't get more carries in that playoff game. And maybe the timing of Montgomery's return actually worked in our favor in that particular game. Do you remember how you guys felt like Gibbs was averaging 10 yards a carry? Washington couldn't stop the run. I think he could have rushed for 250 that particular game. Do you remember having those same thoughts or not?
Oh, yeah. There were people that were up in arms basically saying that Ben Johnson caused that loss because he was already out the door to the Bears, and his play calling was terrible in that game. And they, didn't run the ball, which they should have done, and I get it. You can go there. I mean, but look, Ben Johnson was really good here and did a lot of good things. And there were games where he was pass heavy, and they won a lot of those games. I look back at, they had the ball. I think it was 7-3. Had a chance to go up 2 scores. Maybe it was 10-3, whatever it was. They had the sack fumble. That was the big moment of that game for me.
Yeah.
When they were in plus territory and Washington came up with a big defensive play. Yeah. And, you score there, it's probably a different game. At least it puts more pressure on Jaden Daniels in Washington to make plays down 2 scores than feeling comfortable being up. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things you can look at. But to your point, yeah, there were a lot of people that felt like Ben Johnson had not been effective in that game, nor did he put the team in the best position to win. I mean, look, I didn't love the JMO pass when you're trying to stay in a game. That didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But I never really lost faith in Ben Johnson. He did so many good things here, and that just wasn't their day. And again, I felt like some of that you could see coming. Now, look, I didn't see that many turnovers. This team, that was out of character for them. But defensively, I knew they were going to have a hard time stopping Washington, and Washington just, ran them up and down the field. And that was going to be a whole, a game where if you made a mistake on offense, you were going to be a couple scores down, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, we're talking to Dan Miller, longtime play-by-play voice of the Lions, at Dan Miller Fox 2 on X on Twitter. So I think, heading into this season, from afar anyway, the big questions about the Lions were the loss of the 2 coordinators, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. So what's, the midseason grade on Kelvin Shepherd and John Morton, the DC and the OC?
Well, let's go back to when you and I talked about how quickly things change. Because if you had asked me, like I said, 3 weeks ago going into the Kansas City game, everybody would have told you John Morton has been terrific, number 1 scoring offense. How can you have a problem with what he's doing? All this Ben Johnson stuff was, blown out of proportion. And then 3 weeks where the offense has not looked particularly good. But they've lost 2 out of those 3 games and got a nice win, as you mentioned, over Tampa. So I think there's some questions now with that offense, but I think honestly it has more to do with that offensive line and their ability to do what they want to do. He's not changed that much from what Ben Johnson did. He was here in 2022 when that offense was designed. He was here when that offense was installed. He knows Jared Goff. They have a relationship and had one before he came back to take this job. So I don't put this as much on John Morton as I do that you've taken a key part of this team, and there are now major questions about performance and outlook going forward. And I think those have to be answered. So I think Morton's been fine, but I think they've got some things they have to figure out on offense if they want to get to, being, again, considered one of the best teams in the NFC and moving forward from there. Defensively, they've been good. They've done a nice job. And I think they've been better. You look at the passing yards given up, they were 30th, 27th, and 30th the last 3 years. They've been, in the middle half of the league, at least this year. They're getting the quarterback on the ground more. They've been taking the ball away and giving the offense short fields to work with and things like that. So there are things that are better. But again, I think a lot of it goes back to the players, and losing Frank Ragnow was really significant, man. He's one of the best centers in the league. And they just weren't ready to adequately replace him. And you got some young guys playing in there at the guard spots. Now you're missing one of them. So there's just been some upheaval that I think has impacted Morton's ability to do his job. It's a long way of saying it's different, but I wouldn't necessarily put the problems that they've had to this point on those guys.
Couple players I wanted to ask you about. On defense, the return of Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, do you put him into that class of Watt, Garrett, Parsons? Is he at that level?
I think Garrett kind of stands alone. I think he's a little bit above.
That's fair. I agray with that 100%.
I think he's just kind of an absolute freak. I think Aiden is absolutely there with anybody else. And I think the one thing that Aiden may do better than some of them is he's a complete player. He stops the run. He's everything you would want to pay that kind of money to that they just paid. He's relentless in his pursuit to be great. He wants nothing more than to be the best player on the field. Other players see that. He's a force multiplier. He's a guy that just does all the things that you would want a leader to do, to say to other guys, come with me, this is the way we're going to do it. And they got a couple of those guys. Amon-Ra's the same way. But yeah, I do. He's one of those guys that can change any game in one snap, and those guys are hard to find. and he gets after the quarterback. And even in games where he doesn't have a sack, you find yourself calling his name time after time after time because he will impact the quarterback and force him to throw it maybe before he wants to, give somebody else an opportunity to make a sack or something along those lines. He's always making an impact somehow.
How about that secondary, especially the safeties, Branch and Joseph? I mean, we saw flashes of it certainly last year with Branch in year 2 last year, but how good has that tandem become?
Well, I mean, Kirby's been out for a bit with a knee, and he's been in and out of the lineup. He's probably not going to play this week is my guess. We'll know more after practice today. But when they're right, I think you're hard-pressed to find a better pair of safeties in the league. I mean, they're really good. Kirby has tremendous anticipation and ball skills, led the league in interceptions last year, off to a good start this year before he got hurt. And Branch is just one of those guys that gives them the ability to put him anywhere on the field. You can put him in the box. You can blitz him. You can put him in coverage. He can play some corner. Whatever you need him to do, he can do. So you feel great when those guys are healthy and out there is the back end of your defense. And, they haven't been able to get him out there. Branch was suspended. Kirby has been nicked up a little bit. So whether or not they will be able to play together a lot here in the coming weeks, we'll have to wait and see. Dan Campbell said this week that the inflammation in Kirby Joseph's knee hadn't gone away as quickly as they had hoped. So I don't know what that means going forward, but when they're right, they're really good.
Amon-Ra, I'm just looking at the numbers. He's actually on pace for a career year in receptions and pretty close to it in yards and would shatter his touchdown record. Is this his best season as a pro?
It would be hard to differentiate it from the great ones that he's had for the past couple of years. I mean, simply by numbers, maybe you can say that, but he's just an amazing player. And he's just a guy that when you need it most, when it is most critical, he delivers. And Goff trusts him. The coaches trust him. And again, he like Aiden sets the tone for other guys on the team. And you look at the numbers that he's put up for the first 4 years of his career. He is tracking with the best that have ever played this game. Now, obviously things change. We get receivers that, catch more balls now than they did 10 years ago. And 10 years ago was more than 10 years before that. But he is, to me, up there with anybody in this league, which is why he's been an all-pro. He is just an amazing player that is just got that clutch gene too, that when you need something or makes the catch and he's 3 yards shy of the sticks, he finds a way to get there. He's a great player. And again, just relentlessly driven to be the best that he can be. And I just think that rubs off as well on teammates. I think you can't have enough of those guys.
2 more for you, and I appreciate the time as always. So the Lions come in off a loss. They're 9-point favorites. It's not the game that anybody thought it would be when the schedule was announced. That's unfortunate. But how do you see it? How do you've already mentioned some of the injuries, especially along the offensive line. What are the keys to a Lions, big win and bounce back game this week?
Yeah, they can't do what they did against Minnesota. The thing to me going into that game, playing against J.J. McCarthy, was you couldn't make it easy on him. The Lions get the ball, score on their first possession, 61-yard kickoff return, and he comes out and he takes over at the plus 36-yard line. So he's already got points in the bank. And then 2 other possessions started in plus territory, one off a blocked field goal, one off a turnover. So you got a quarterback who's barely played. There are questions about how good he is. He's obviously confident, but you don't know exactly how that translates. And 3 possessions, which totaled 17 points, the furthest he had to go was 36 yards. Look, don't make it easy on Washington. They're obviously hurting on offense. Your quarterback is gone. Mariota's got a lot of skins on the wall. He's played a lot, but they can't give short fields. And that's the thing with the offense. Don't turn it over. Don't give him short fields. Don't make it easy on him to move the ball down the field and see if you can test them to have 8-9 play drives and if they can put that together. So, and then offensively, it's hard, Kevin, because I don't know who's going to be in there on that offensive line. And that's going to dictate how they do it. If you tell me everybody's healthy, I tell you this is a team that historically is capable of going on those runs where they score on touchdowns on 4 straight possessions or 4 out of 5 or something like that. And you put a run like that together, you're going to be in great shape. So Really, for this team, it's about just playing up to their capabilities. But we've been saying that now for several weeks. It's it's us. It's not them. It's we got to play the way we're capable of playing. It's not what they're doing. It's self-inflicted and things like that. Well, it's all fine to say, but you got to go out there and do it. And I just think it's a game where if they play to their capabilities with this Washington team in the state that they're in, they should win the game. But what I've seen over the last 3 weeks give me some pause that they're in that mode right now. It's an interesting team. They don't stay down for long. They've got a 52-game streak where they have not lost back-to-back games. No team in the NFL is close to that. They haven't lost back-to-back games since October 30th, 2022. And
we're talking about the Lions that have that streak.
They got that streak. Yeah. I mean, it's
crazy.
There's no team in the league that's close. And I think it's a testament to Dan Campbell's ability to get them right coming off a loss. And he's going to be challenged to do that this week. This will be a desperate Washington team. I don't care who's in there. You're on the road, which is never easy in this league. So I'm really interested to see how Detroit comes out and handles this challenge and plays. And I think I know what they're capable of. I just need to see it again.
So the last question is this, and just thinking about the Lions, like the resurrection of the franchise here over the last couple of years, Dan Campbell and his influence, getting to the postseason and beating the Rams and the Bucks and then losing a championship game, in Santa Clara that was definitely winnable to go to their first Super Bowl. Last year, the incredible regular season and then the massive disappointment. And we know that there were reasons for that. Is there any feeling that this year's like a big year for anybody? Like they gotta take that next step. They've got to be another deep into January Super Bowl contending and finally get there, or not?
Are you talking about because somebody would be in trouble if they didn't? Or
yeah, I mean whether it's Holmes or I mean I'm just saying last year was such a disappointment. If this year ended in disappointment again, would there be any major changes?
No, there wouldn't. I mean, look, these guys have built this team so that it's going to be good for the long haul. If you look at that roster, how many guys they have that are 26 or under that are at or near the top of their position group. I mean, they've already given out nearly $1 billion in second contracts. This team is built. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not going to have some work to do on that roster one way or the other. They're going to have to start replenishing that offensive line. And, Taylor Decker has been nicked a lot this year. Graham Glasgow is not young anymore. So there's questions that they'll have going forward. But look, these guys have built this thing the right way. They have put this organization in a position where it has not been in decades. I mean, decades. I mean, we have seen it done the wrong way. Now we know what it looks like when it's done the right way. They've drafted, they've developed, they've kept their guys. The roster looks terrific. But you're facing challenges this year in terms of injuries again. You're facing challenges this year in terms of got a lot of good teams out there. But I think for the long haul, these guys are solid. They've got a plan. They stick to it. They don't deviate. It's paid dividends. I don't know where it'll go this year and what the story's going to look like this year, but I think they feel very good about where they are and where they're ultimately going.
Thanks for doing this, Dan. Always enjoy it. Have a good trip back to your hometown this weekend. Talk to you soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin.
Dan Miller, everybody, at Dan Miller Fox 2 on X on Twitter. Been calling Lions games now for a long time, and they do have a lot of good young players on that team, a lot of good second contract players. But how about, the injury situation for them along their offensive line? That'll be something to keep an eye on this week. All right, we've got some NFL talk when we come back. Buy and sell for the week. Max and I will give you those. If you want to weigh in, 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980 and the team980.com. All right, all of our NFL talk on this show presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. All right, you got to buy something NFL-wise. You got to sell something NFL-wise. We will next hour do our mid-season updates to our preseason predictions. I'm going to start with this, and it's going to be a 3-1. All right, a 3-1 buy. I'm buying the Pats this weekend to beat Tampa Bay. I've been against them the last 4 weeks with the points. Finally got, a cover with Atlanta on Sunday. I actually think they're the right side catching a short number at Tampa this week. I think the Patriots cover and beat Tampa outright on Sunday. It would be, I think, since that Buffalo win, their most impressive win. But I'm also buying the Patriots to win a minimum of 12 games this year. And I'm buying the Patriots to win at least one playoff game this year, even if they're in that 5 spot. If they don't win the division, Buffalo catches them, beats them, whatever. Even if they're in a 5 spot and they're playing Pittsburgh or Baltimore in a 5-4 game on the road, there's a 3-1. Beating Patriots, winning 12, and winning a playoff game, the New England Patriots. About a month ago, I sold the Patriots. So a month later, I'm buying them. Stay tuned. Things change in the NFL. What's your buy?
My buy, it's interesting, man. This team, they play up and down to their competition, sometimes getting smoked 40-9 by the Bills. Then the next week, they go out and beat the Packers as a 2-touchdown underdog. I am buying the Carolina Panthers as a playoff team. They're plus 800.
Whoa.
They're plus 800 to win the division.
Yeah.
Might be worth a flyer. I could see it happening. And the value's there.
You got Tampa. Is your mid-season prediction of Tampa being the 1 seed going to change?
No, the 1 seed, maybe. I do think Tampa wins the division, but I think Carolina wins enough games to make a decent case for them to be in the wild card. So give me the Panthers making the playoffs.
That's bold, man. You should have saved that for tomorrow. That's really, really bold.
We're going out on a limb today.
I love it. But that should have been saved for Don't Be Surprised If. All right. I'm selling the Baltimore Ravens from making the playoffs.
Ooh.
They're the favorite to win the AFC North. Be honest with you, I didn't think they looked that good against Miami last week. I know it was Lamar's first game back. And by the way, he was 18 of 23 for 4 touchdowns, no picks. But they couldn't stop Miami. The final score was not really reflective of how Miami moved the ball at will in the first half and just, self-destructed because they're the Dolphins. They're not any good. I know Baltimore has a schedule that's very, very favorable. They play at Minnesota this week. That's an interesting game. But they still have, the terrible defense Bengals twice. They've got the Jets. They've got the Browns. But they do have the Steelers twice, the Patriots, and the Packers. I don't think Baltimore is going to win the division. I think Pittsburgh's going to win the division. And I don't think Baltimore is going to make the playoffs. And if you're wondering why that's a sell, well, because they're favored to win the division. They are the favorite to win the division. A slight favorite after Pittsburgh beat Indy last week, but they're the favorite to win the division. So I'm selling the Ravens as a playoff team this year. I just don't think they've got it on defense anywhere near enough. What are you selling?
So my sell is another team that people are very high on right now. They are coming off a loss, and that's part of the reason why I'm selling. I'm selling the Indianapolis Colts, not for the regular season, but I'm selling their hopes to win a playoff game. I think that the Steelers put out the blueprint this week to show everybody all you need to do is stop the run and make Daniel Jones beat you with his arm and dare him to do it that way. And that's what I think the teams are going to try and do throughout the rest of the season against the Colts. And I think that's going to really come to fruition in the playoffs. Give me the Colts to not win a playoff game.
That's not a bad one. I mean, I could definitely see that happening. I mean, Daniel Jones is certainly capable, even at home.
Doing the Sam Darnold turning into a pumpkin.
But, we are 1 week removed from them having this incredible point differential, this incredible run. Even the losses really could have very easily been wins. So they do have a good roster. That's going to be an interesting one. I've got one more buy here. I should probably save this for our midseason grade, but I'm just going to tell you what it is right now. After watching Seattle, not necessarily against us, but in the lead up to our game, because last Friday I came in here and several of you said that I sounded, well, you used some bad words for being soft, but you also said that I was an alarmist. I just, in watching Seattle the previous weeks, I'm like, wow, I knew they were good. I don't think I knew they were this good. And I'm going to give you this right now at the midpoint, and you'll hear it, emphasized even more in my midseason grades. The two best teams in the NFC are the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. They're going to battle it out for the division in the NFC West, and I think there's a chance the two of them will face each other in the NFC Championship game. They have not played yet. They play on the 16th of November at SoFi, and they play in Seattle in what is shaping up to be like a huge Thursday night game late in the season. Heading into, that first significant holiday weekend around Christmas, the Rams and the Seahawks are scheduled for a Thursday night, December 18th game, Amazon Prime. That game in Seattle. That could be the game to determine the 1 seed in the NFC and where the playoffs go through. But I think Philly's really good. I think Detroit's really good. I think Green Bay's certainly capable. Tampa's capable to a certain degree. I think we've reached the halfway mark, and I think the Rams and the Seahawks are the two best teams in the NFC. The Rams are really, really dynamic when they are healthy on offense with Nakua and with Devontae Adams and with the scheme and with the running ability. And then defensively, they've got some freaks, man, legit freaks. And don't look now, Emmanuel Forbes has stepped up and starting to play really good at corner for them. But I think the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams are my buy to meet in the NFC Championship game. One of them will be hosting it as a 1 seed. You got anything else that you're going to buy or sell?
I'll take one more just to get this off my chest. I mean, the Chiefs are coming off a loss to the Bills, so I feel like that price is coming down a little bit, and they're going up against two teams with 7 or more wins, the Broncos and the Colts in back-to-back weeks.
Right.
So give me some Chiefs just for a little bit of value here. I mean, going forward, I think they're just going to figure it out and come together like they always do. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs right now, and I'll hold on to that for a while.
Yeah, the Chiefs are interesting, right? Like they're on that roll. They win 3 in a row. They had that Jacksonville game in between. They lose to Buffalo. I mean, they were a short favorite, but nobody's shocked at that. But
yeah, and they always
coming
lose to
off
Buffalo
this
in the regular
weekend's
season.
bye at Denver, then Indy at home, then at Dallas on Thanksgiving. We talked about this when the schedule came out. Kansas City at Dallas on Thanksgiving has a chance to be the most watched regular season game in NFL history. I think they're counting on that. And then, by the way, they've got the Texans and the Chargers after that, and they still have another game late in the year against the Broncos. That, by the way, is the other Christmas Day game. That's the Christmas night game. You have Washington and Dallas during the day on Christmas. It's a triple header, right, on Christmas? Triple header?
I think that is correct.
Yeah, here it is. Sure. Dallas, Washington at 1, Detroit at Minnesota at 4:30, and then perhaps shaping up to be a massive game, Denver at Arrowhead Christmas night. Yeah. I'll tell you what, they're getting lucky with the holiday games this year. You go to Thanksgiving, right? You've got Green Bay at Detroit, KC at Dallas, Cincy at Baltimore is the night game, but it's Flacco's second trip back to Baltimore if Burrow's not back. And it could be a huge game for Baltimore on that Thanksgiving night. And then Christmas, it looks like Washington-Dallas is going to be the game that means nothing, more likely than not. Yeah, they got some good holiday football that they scheduled. You don't always get lucky with the schedule that far out in advance. I think last year was something like New England and Denver on Christmas. The Thanksgiving Day games weren't that great. This year, the NFL seems to be tracking towards some massive, massive numbers on holidays. All right, if you want to weigh in, phone lines are open. If you've got an NFL buy or sell a team, a player, anything, you can have at it. We've got a couple of other things to get to, too. Want to remind everybody, Ed Cooley, the Georgetown coach, is going to join us at 12:30, Maryland and Georgetown, Friday night in College Park.
All right, happy Wednesday, everybody. Here's what's happening. Late last night, it was announced that Frankie Louvu's suspension for one game against the Lions was lifted. Instead, he will be fined $100,000, likely his final warning on the issue of hip drop tackles. Some more news out of Ashburn. The Commanders have signed Treylon Burks and Sheldon Day to the 53-man roster, and also cornerback Trey Hawkins and safety Darrell Worley have both been signed to the practice squad. Some NFL trade deadline news as they wrapped up yesterday. Big moves coming out of Indianapolis as they trade for star corner Sauce Gardner from the New York Jets. Plus, the Cowboys made a move trading for Quinnen Williams, also from the Jets, who engaged in quite a fire sale yesterday. Tonight, the Washington Capitals, they get underway against the St. Louis Blues. First night of a back-to-back. Rasmus Sandin expected to make his return from the injured reserve after he suffered an upper body injury 2 weeks ago. No Pierre-Luc Dubois for the Caps. He may miss an extended period of time due to a lower body injury. Not expected to be season-ending, but still determining whether or not he will need surgery. Logan Thompson between the pipes tonight on night one of a back-to-back. They play the Penguins tomorrow. Puck drop at 7:30. Pre-game coverage gets underway at 7:15 on 106.7 The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
From Perry. Perry writes, you and the Patriots this year, what is your problem? You're also schizo on another 3 or 4 teams. He doesn't mention them, but man, you had it out for the Pats, and now you love them. It's not that I had it out for them. The odds makers kept creating these point spreads that made them a heavy public betting favorite, and I went against them for 4 straight weeks, and I won the last week and lost the other 3. So I thought, contrarian me, yeah, they're kind of not feeling the Patriots right now. They're inviting all this public money, and the Patriots made the public look good. Look, I'm not apologizing for any of my picks this year. I'm 70, 41, and 6. That's documented. Already have, by the way, the board all figured out. I've got very good clarity on the board this week. May have a game tomorrow, by the way, on the show. May not be a pro game, might be a college game. We'll wait on that. Buy and sell talk brought to you by Paramount. All of our talk about the NFL presented by Paramount Plus. Streaming November 16th on Paramount Plus. It's the return of Landman. What a great show. From Taylor Sheridan, co-creator of Yellowstone, Academy Award winner Billy Bob Thornton is back, featuring Academy Award nominees Demi Moore, Andy Garcia, and Sam Elliott. Landman, new season streaming November 16th only on Paramount Plus. I can't wait for this to come out. Max, during football season, it's always hard. It's hard, but for this one, my wife and I are definitely anticipating Landman next season. Should be great. All right. If you didn't see Landman the first season, it may be Billy Bob Thornton's best work ever. That's saying a lot. Sling Blade, all the movies, Fargo, which I think Fargo season 1 with him he's insane, but he's better in this than anything. All right, NFL buy and sell. Let's start with our guy, Little. Little, go ahead. Buy and sell something.
Cam, Coach, thank you for taking my call. Shout out to Man Max. Man, for real, Cam, I'm going to make a statement, and I hope a lot of people pay attention to this statement, but I'm buying Mike McCarthy. I'm selling Fifth Kingsbury. I'm going to tell you one reason why.
Hold on. You're buying Mike McCarthy, like the former Cowboys coach?
We had this conversation already. Yes.
Okay.
Mike McCarthy's a hell of an innovator when it comes to offense. If you don't believe me, ask the legend. You should know that yourself, Kevin. But look, the reason why I'm going to say this statement, man, I've been hearing a lot. I've been out in the country. I was in Brazil, man. I think I bumped into one of y'all comrades while I was out there. I'm not sure. But I'm going to call Bruce and I'm going to come to the hotel I was staying in.
Okay.
But look, I couldn't call in, but I was able to pick up the games. It's sad, man, because you go back to I'm going to use this as a parable. And I believe in parables, especially when I see it with my own damn eyes. In the Chargers game,
you believe in what? I'm sorry, you believe in what?
I believe in parables.
Parables, got it. Okay.
Right. Okay, now look, at the Chargers game, we spring Bill twice on the count of trade. You know this man haven't went back to that place since the Chargers game, pulling both guards.
Yeah, with Krosky Merritt. Yeah, no, they've run more counters. They've run counters, but they didn't seem to run enough of them on Sunday night. I will concede that.
Hey, he been jamming. Hear me out, Kev. He been jamming BMC up the middle, man, too much.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen him pull. I only seen him pull Tunsil one time, where he went right up. He pulled Tunsil one time. And you know what?
So do you think Mike McCarthy would take the OC job?
I believe he'll take it to the next level. And I'm gonna tell you one other thing that's got me puzzled. We have these teams coming off the ball on us so quick, man, to get to it. We don't call no draw plays. He called 4 traps, man.
I didn't think they called enough screens either.
4 traps,
I didn't think they called enough screens either. I'm with you on some of the running the football, and I was not a big fan of Cliff's play calling on Sunday night.
I'm kind of worried seriously. I think something wrong with Kingsbury, man. I mean, I don't want to say it in the negative way. Somebody got to check him out, man.
I can't see Mike McCarthy taking an OC job, but stranger things have happened.
I think he's close to Kingsbury. He's close to Dan Quinn. Coach.
Yeah.
Watch what I'm saying. Mike McCarthy,
thanks, Little. I want to get to some other calls. Appreciate it. Let's go to Duntel. Duntel, what are you buying? What are you selling?
Hey, Kev, how you doing today, my man?
Good, Duntel.
I have 2 sales that I'm selling, but I had to throw this out there to you real quick. Do you watch much NBA? Because I can't believe you told me that Josh Giddey's not as good as Austin Reeves. I had to get that off my chest, Kev, because we talked about that last time.
Well, I was a big Josh Giddey fan. I think Josh Giddey, it didn't work out, obviously, for him in OKC. I think that there's something where he, in some of these big games, is really shied away from the big moment. And I understand he's been on some teams with some other good players, but I'm a big Austin Reeves fan. Huge. I think he's the opposite when games are big. I think he thrives on some of those situations.
Okay, I'm going to have to check him out when the games get tougher then for him.
Yeah.
They on a road
Well, they
right
played
now,
more of them than Josh Giddey's played in recent years.
Right. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So my sales is definitely, I'm selling New England as a really good football team. I just think they are somewhat like we were last year, man. They're catching a favorable schedule. I mean, they won 7 games, but we got to look who they won against. They beat Cleveland, Tennessee, Saints, Miami, and then they beat a not very good Steelers defense early in the season. So I'm just thinking they're going to make the playoffs, Kev, but they're going to be one and done when they meet a good football team, and that's just my opinion on that one. And I'm also
I think you could say very easily they've got a much better defense than Washington had last year.
That would be correct. That would be correct. I just don't see.
I mean, New England is way up there, and I'm pulling it up right now because when Seattle was number 1 against the rush last week, New England was really, really close. Yeah, here it is. New England's now the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. Seattle's number 2. How did that happen after Sunday night? It's because Jaden rushed for 50-something yards. Yeah, New England's the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. Yeah, the schedule, we've talked about that, no doubt. But the big difference between New England in 25 and Washington in 24 is they've got a much better team than Washington did. Washington had a great quarterback last year. And by the way, New England's quarterbacks played at a super high level, no doubt. But their defense, number 1 rush defense in the NFL, Washington's was one of the worst last year.
Wow, I didn't know they was that high on defense, but I'm still sticking with my sell on that one.
Okay.
And I'm also
listen. I just went all in. I think they're going to win a playoff game.
I think the next sell for me is I'm selling the Washington Commanders, my squad, as going in the right direction. I just don't think they're doing anything but the same old, same old. We're settling for mediocre contracts for mediocre guys, and they just have to make some kind of big splash before we're going to be anything.
Well, they've got the room to do it, and now they've got a year and a half of knowledge, off 2 full seasons of knowledge. So they're top 3 cap space in the league, so we'll see. By the way, I'm just looking at the DVOA numbers. New England's high against the rush, not so high against the pass. So their pass defense, not great, but their run defense right now, yards allowed, is number 1 in the league. Wow. Part of that, too, it would be fair to say they've had some good leads in games where teams have probably abandoned the run. Let's go to Ross in Tampa. Ross, go ahead. Buy and sell something quickly.
All right, real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and buy Lou Anarumo as a defensive coordinator. I think when he was in Cincinnati, he had to pretty much teach trigonometry to a bunch of 7th graders. And the only one who actually passed was the edge rusher. And now he's at a college teaching it to people who can actually understand his concept. So I like the trade with Sauce, which I thought was pricey. So I can't wait to see how that unfolds. Let me go ahead and sell Zach Taylor. I just, at this point, I think Cincinnati's better off just parting ways. Let Joe Burrow run that offense with a different OC. And then you hire a defensive-minded head coach, I think that team could be much better. And I'm going to go ahead and quick sneak a sell with YouTube TV and ESPN. They need to get their stuff together because I can't be missing many more games.
Get it together. It's ridiculous. I had to stream some of the stuff I had to stream through Xfinity. It drove me crazy. Thanks, Ross. Robert, give you 30 seconds. That's all I got, Robert. Go ahead.
All right. Well, Kevin, I just wanted to remind you, you already sold the Ravens making the playoffs.
I did? Well,
last week. Yes, you did.
Well, I can't remember that long ago.
You sold them twice, but you haven't sold the Commanders not making the Commanders.
I think that goes without saying. Baltimore's still the favorite to win the division. I'm trying to sell something that would, be, a legitimate sell, like a surprise sell. Yeah, Washington's not making the postseason. If I haven't said that, I should say that.
All right. Well, I'll just sell Dan Quinn and Adam Peters as those guys being able to make your team successful in the long run.
They're a bunch of dopes. Yeah.
You'll see. You will see.
That was sarcasm in case people out there are listening. Trust me, yours truly is not bailing after 21 months and what happened last year on our head coach or our general manager. All right. We do have some mid-season grades. We've got some sound that we want to play. Dan Quinn scheduled to speak. We got to figure out the next hour because we got Ed Cooley coming on as well. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. Ed Cooley coming up at 12:35. Dan Quinn's going to address the media at around 12:30. So we'll play the beginning of that at 12:30, and then we'll bring the head coach of Georgetown on the show at 12:35. Actually, Ed Cooley and Dan Quinn are friends. I think they live near each other and neighbors, and they become friends. Ed Cooley's rooting for Dan Quinn and our team to turn it around. Georgetown's got a good team this year. Maryland and Georgetown play Friday night. That will be a big game in College Park. Window Nation's right now offering their year-end sale, which is one of the best they offer all year long. This November, you can save big on new windows, 50% off on all window styles. Plus, if you decide to finance your purchase, you can do it with 0% financing for 5 years. You won't be charged interest until the year 2030. Your total price includes Window Nation's professional one-day installation. They've got proven quality windows that are so good, they'll save you big money on your utility bills. Next week, cold weather and maybe, according to Capital Weather Gang, maybe our first light snow or flurries next week. Window Nation's proven quality windows are so good, they'll keep your heating bills low in the winter, your air conditioning bills low in the summer. Window Nation offers a lifetime warranty on their windows, and they have over 45,000 five-star customer service reviews. Put an end to your window problems. Don't wait. Window Nation's end-of-year sale is your chance to save big with 50% off all window styles, plus 0% financing for 5 years. Sale ends soon. Visit windownation.com today to get started. That's windownation.com. All right, so Max and I were looking at our preseason NFL predictions. We are at the halfway mark. We've got 9 weeks complete. Mid-season adjustments are now underway. And, of course, there are a lot of them. First of all, I wanted to mention, Max, that I played all of these, by the way, 5 preseason win totals. Last year, I was 0-5 on my total, my prop bets for totals. This year, here were the 5. The Steelers over 8.5. That looks pretty good. I think that's going to win, don't you?
Yeah, I'd say you're pretty close.
Patriots under 8.5. That has no chance.
Nope.
Washington over 9.5. That's not going to
I would have jumped on that with you, too.
And then I've got the Rams over 9.5. I think that will cash.
I think you're fine there.
And the 49ers over 10.5. That could be tough, even though they've got 6 wins right now. We'll see.
It's going to get tight.
I've got 2 that I feel really good about. Steelers over, Rams over.
Yeah. 2
that are basically shot, Patriots under, Washington over. And then the 49ers over. And that was a pricey play at minus 116. Over 10.5. We'll see. All right. We're going to do our AFC midseason adjustments today. If we've got time for our NFC, we'll get to them today, but we may have to wait till tomorrow. We'll see. So, preseason, I had as the top 7 seeds in the AFC, I had the Chiefs winning the division, the AFC West and being the 1 seed, the Bills winning the AFC East and being the 2 seed. I did pick the Steelers to win the AFC North and be the 3 seed. I had the Texans winning the AFC South and being the 4 seed. And my 3 wildcard teams were the Ravens, Bengals, and Chargers. Right now, the Ravens and Chargers could certainly be there. But if the Ravens make the playoffs, it's going to be as a division winner. My AFC title game was Chiefs over Steelers. I guess that's still, in play. My overperformer was Pittsburgh. My underperformer was New England. And my bold prediction in the AFC before the season started was that Aaron Rodgers would make the Pro Bowl. Is there a chance that he makes the Pro Bowl? Daniel Jones clearly is going to make the Pro Bowl, right? I mean, that's a given in the AFC.
So far, yeah. Unless he flames out somehow, which
Drake May is probably on his way to a Pro Bowl season.
Yeah, certainly.
Aaron Rodgers is not going to be a Pro Bowler. There are too many players like Herbert. Mahomes.
But that's the thing. Snoop
I mean, at
Huntley
this point,
Pro Bowler.
Flacco's got a better shot at being a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
If he keeps I'm kidding.
He's going to be an alternate.
Josh Allen.
Yeah. Well,
Rodgers is not making the Pro Bowl.
You never know.
I know.
But guys don't want to show up for it, so I could see him being an alternate. But
okay, an alternate. Fine. All right. Do you have your picks? I can read them back to you if you want.
Let's make sure that mine are right. My 1 seed was the Kansas City Chiefs.
No. That's not what I have here.
What did you have?
I had you as the 1 seed as the Ravens. The Bills is the 2, the Chiefs is the 3, Texans 4, Steelers, Bengals, Broncos.
I do have Steelers, Bengals, Broncos making the playoffs as my wild card.
Yeah.
What I have written down is Bills, Ravens, Texans, and then the Chiefs is the 1 seed.
Okay. Well, maybe I had that wrong in transcribing.
Well, because I took the Ravens as my
okay, well, you know what? The
winner.
seeding's not important. You get the Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, and Texans as the division winners. And your AFC title game, I had it as the Ravens over the Bills.
Mm-hmm. That is correct. Yeah, that is what I had.
You had an overperformer in the AFC being the Titans. That's not going to work out.
Nope, didn't work great.
You had an underperformer. You were dead on with the Dolphins.
Bang.
And your AFC bold prediction was that Cam Ward would be the offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I thought that'd work out, but
yeah,
you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, you do. All right, let's make adjustments. You ready?
Yeah, ready to rock.
All right, in the AFC West, I am keeping the Chiefs as the division winner. I think there's too much football to go, and I still think they're the best team. It's going to come down to them in Denver. I don't think the Chargers will be in the hunt when we get to the end of the year for the division. I don't think they're as good as Denver and Kansas City, but I'm keeping the Chiefs as the division winner. But I do not obviously have them as the 1 seed. I'll give you the seeds here in a moment. In the AFC East, I really think New England's got a really good chance because of that schedule, but I'm going to stick with Buffalo as my AFC East winner. Pittsburgh as my AFC North winner, and Indy obviously is the AFC South winner. My wild cards are going to be New England, Denver, and what was my other one? New England, Denver. Oh, I can't pick them now because is Stroud even going to play? That was going to be like my bold thing to say Houston.
I don't know how long he's going to be out for yet.
All right, so I guess I'm going to go with 3 teams out of the AFC West, and I'll go the Chargers as the 3rd wild card team. All right, so once overall, I'll see them in a moment. Give me your division winners and the 3 wild cards.
All right, so my division winners right now, I've got the Chiefs coming out of the AFC West. They're not going to be my 1 seed, but I do have them winning the division. The Steelers winning the AFC North, and then
you're going with Pittsburgh too, even though Baltimore's still a slight favorite.
I still it's just that defense is just too smelly. But yeah, so then the AFC East, I've got the Patriots with that cake schedule and that win over the Bills in hand. That's going to be important coming down the stretch. I think the Patriots are going to win the AFC East. My 3 wild card teams, I'm going to stick with.
Wait, what? You got Indy, right?
Yeah. Indy's my AFC South.
3 wild cards.
So my 3 wild cards right now are the Chargers, the Jaguars, and the Broncos.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Okay, so you had the Jags, and I had you did not have you've got the Bills not making the playoffs. I just want to make you aware of that.
Bills are in my wild card because yes, I did overlook
so are
that.
you knocking the Jags out?
I am going to knock the Jags out.
Okay,
sorry to Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. So we basically had the same, except I had the Bills winning the division, New England as a wild card. You had New England winning the division, the Bills as a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my AFC title game, I'm not backing off it. Chiefs, surprisingly, over the Steelers. I'm going to stick with my preseason prediction. Why the Steelers to win 2 playoff games? I just got to think that maybe they're going to improve a little bit on defense. I don't think Indy's got the experience. New England doesn't have the experience that means I'd have them beating. I mean, to get to the AFC title game, they would have to beat more likely than not the Chiefs or the Bills, if not both of them. But I'm going to stick with that because it's a bit out there. Not the Chiefs. But once the Chiefs are in the postseason, is anybody going to bet against them? Probably not. Chiefs over Steelers, I'm sticking with as my AFC title game. What's yours?
My AFC title game, I mean, we just saw it over the weekend, and since the Bills have won in the regular season, I think it's destined again. Give me the Chiefs and the Bills in the AFC title game. Just it's forever written.
I mean, 35 seconds ago, you had the Bills out of the playoffs.
I know. I overlooked that, but I do have it written down as the Chiefs and the Bills. Meeting together.
There are a couple of of course, a Buffalo Kansas City game. Indy hosting like a game against Kansas City or Buffalo. New England potentially, if they were a division winner, hosting a second round divisional round game or a wild card game against somebody like the Chargers, or Denver. I mean, you're going to have some interesting matchups with potentially Indy and New England and even Denver hosting games. That's the scenario that's setting up in the AFC, is that Indy and New England and potentially Denver could be underdogs at home in the playoffs, with Buffalo and Kansas City as teams, potentially on the outside, looking in division-wise. They'd be wild cards. That's going to be interesting if those teams end up winning the divisions. All right, we'll give you our NFC midseason modifications when we come back on the Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. All right, mid-season modifications for Max and yours truly. We have our AFC title games. I'm keeping my preseason Chiefs over Steelers, and you've got Kansas City over the Bills in the AFC title game. You did have the Ravens over the Bills. All right, in our NFC picks, I had in the NFC, the 49ers is the 1 seed, the Packers is the 2, Washington winning the division is the 3, Tampa is the 4, Eagles 5, Rams 6, Lions 7. So I had the 49ers, Packers, Washington, and Tampa Bay as division winners, Eagles, Rams, Lions as wild cards. And I had Washington advancing to the Super Bowl over the 49ers. My overperformer was Washington, along with, I said, the Panthers and the Giants are going to be better than people think. So I'm going to be right on one of those. My underperformer was the Vikings. I might be right about that. My bold prediction was that Tyson Bagent starts games for Caleb, not because of injury in Chicago. Your number 1 seed, this was a stunner, back in early September. You had Tampa Bay winning the NFC South and being the number 1 seed. Washington is the 2 seed. 49ers is the 3. Lions is the 4. And then your 3 wild cards were the Eagles, Packers, and Cardinals. And you can share with everybody what your NFC championship game was.
My NFC championship was a rematch between the Commanders and the Bucs.
And Washington beating Tampa Bay to advance. We both had Washington going to the Super Bowl.
We were drinking the Kool-Aid, Kev.
We were. It was just 2 months ago, almost to the day, actually. You had as the overperformer in the NFC, the Giants, the underperformer, Seattle, and your NFC bold prediction was Bucky Irving wins Offensive Player of the Year. So a little bit off on those.
Man. That hurts.
So let's go with modifications here. My 1 seed in the NFC is going to be Seattle. I think they're going to win the NFC West and end up with the best regular season record in the NFC. But it's going to be a fight, man, with the Rams. Those are going to be the 2 best teams. Philly, I've got as the 2 seed. Tampa as the 3. Detroit as the 4. That loss hurt them against Minnesota. The Rams will be the top wild card team, followed by the Packers and then the 49ers. My NFC championship game is going to be the Rams going to Seattle and beating the Seahawks in the NFC title game to advance to the Super Bowl. What about you?
So I've got Bucs still as my 1 seed. I'm going to hold on to that. Got the Eagles as the 2 seed, going winning the NFC East. Then I got the Rams as my 3 seed. I think they're coming out of the NFC West and giving the Lions coming out of the NFC North as the 4 seed. My wild card teams, the first wild card team in is going to be the Seahawks. They pumped us this week. I can't not. Then I got the Packers, and I kind of teased it in the buy or sell, but give me the Panthers sneaking in through the wild card.
Let's just look at the Panthers schedule real quickly.
I looked at it. It's tough. It's tough.
Dude.
They've
already remember this. They already beat the Falcons. No. They haven't played the Bucs at all. They have 2 games against the Bucs.
Yeah,
in the last 3 weeks of the season.
They do, and they got the
with
Seahawks
Seattle
in
sandwiched in between.
Yeah, so it's tough.
Yeah.
I'm going to need Bryce Young to turn into God. But
what's your NFC title game?
My NFC title game is going to be Rams Eagles. I think we're going to see a rematch of what happened last year. I do, however, think the Rams are going to get one over on Philadelphia in that game.
We both have the Rams going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're good, man. And McVay, that defense, it's just...
And we both have the Chiefs in the... We have a Rams-Chiefs Super Bowl.
It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, there you go. Maybe we'll do a 2/3 of the season modification because these will probably look bad by the time we get there. All right, when we come back, you'll hear the beginning of Dan Quinn's press conference, maybe getting an update on Jaden Daniels. Ed Cooley, the Georgetown coach, after that. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. We're going to carry the beginning of Dan Quinn's press conference, and then Ed Cooley will jump on with us, the Georgetown coach. I heard it in earlier What's Trending from Max. I actually didn't know it before the show began, but Frankie Louvu appealed and won the appeal and will be on the field Sunday against Detroit. And what was the fine that he's... What'd you say?
Sorry, Quinn just started speaking.
All right, let's go to Ashburn for Quinn. Louvu's going to play Sunday.
Yes, he will.
Today, so let's get started with you guys.
With Jaden not on IR, what's the update on him? What with the plan for him?
Yep, we are actually going through a final medical meeting today regarding second opinions and that to put the plan together. So we should have an update for you here. The next day or so, just being thorough through the whole process, like all the guys, to make sure all the opinions and then gather all the info and then make the decisions from there.
And then we've talked a lot about the physical toll of the injuries, just like guys who are missing. What's the mental toll on this many injuries on a team? When you see, I know it's next man up, but what's the mental toll like?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. It is, because there's continuity issues that take place first off when you have an injury of people, not in sync all the time together. But the mental toll, it's definitely a big one. It's also for the guys that are out, some that are out that'll come back, some that are out for the season. And the ones that I worry about are the ones out for the season. As far as the mental toll collectively, team, like everybody goes through it, and some stuff, not injuries, but I'm saying hard things, and you find your way and you adapt. But it's better to acknowledge it, talk about it, and find the best plan moving forward. And if you have, the right mindset to go solve the problems, then, okay, this is what we need to go do, and this is how we need to go do it. I think just being straight about it, John, is the best approach to eliminate any doubt. And this is how we're going to go win, and each game is winnable. And you have to say, this is how we're going to go do it for this game. And that may look different week to week. But for us, that's where the focus goes. And I try to explain that in the beginning of the week, and then you try to make that come to life through the game plan and the practice. And so having a whole week to go do that against a talented Detroit team, like we'll need the whole week and the practice to do that.
Dan, what is the film showing you about Mikey this season?
Yeah, I would say there's been up and down moments, meaning the playmaker, the interceptions I saw at LA and, the last couple of weeks. So the ball hawking mindset, which I love. There's also been a couple of plays of over trying, to make those plays. And that's kind of part of the process. You don't like to go through that, but when you're capable of making plays, well, I'll make some more and I'll make a few more. And then all of a sudden that's not the one that you need to take a chance on. In the basketball world, I'm not going to force this shot. That's what sometimes happens to a ball player who has the skills to go do that. And I think there's been some examples of that this year. And I'm not surprised because he's a competitor and wants to help and make plays. And so part of my training with the guys and talking to them, I want them to feel backs against the wall and fight for that. But I don't want them to over try to make things up, to go try to win. Like the attitude, the mindset, that's good, but not at the expense of veering off course to do something that could have other consequences. And he has to learn that, I would say, but he's not alone in that. That's, everybody, when you're fight like hell, you want to make a play for the team, you want to change the course of things. And so it's actually when you need to be the most disciplined. And those are good, hard lessons, but ones that I'm certain that he's learned too.
What does he have to lean into as a second-year player who has this? It's a natural kind of progression. There's tape on you now. There's ways to attack you now. And what does he have to lean into to kind of get through those rough patches when it doesn't go the way he would like it to go?
Yeah, I think you have to lean into the discipline and the technique, because when you play with that and you have that and you can lean on that, man, then you're good, David, because now I know I can play the technique and play it when you're maybe I'm off, I'm back, I want to take a shot, then you're not out of the technique. So I think there's like a real discipline that has to take place. And as you're going through, sometimes I feel like he's older than going into the second year, but some of those players that have more years.
To Dan Quinn, he was asked right off the bat about Jaden Daniels. Does not have an update on Jaden quite yet. They're going through what he called a thorough process, and we should have more info on him. I think the tell is that he wasn't put on injured reserve yesterday, where Lattimore and Luke McCaffrey were. My guess is when we do hear, it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks, something like that, and not nearly as serious as it potentially looked on Sunday night. So there you go. Joining us right now, and it's a pleasure to have him back on the show, is the head coach at Georgetown, Ed Cooley. The Terps host Georgetown Friday night. We've got a series that will begin and hopefully will last forever with Ed Cooley going up against Buzz Williams. They've coached against each other for sure in the past. First of all, perfect timing to come in with you on the show, because I know that you and Dan Quinn have become friends, right? You live near each other and you guys have become pretty friendly.
I'm a big Coach Quinn fan. I'm a converted Commanders fan, obviously being born and raised in New England. Yet at the same time, I love his drive. I love his passion, his toughness. I've been fortunate to go to a game and kind of witness it firsthand. So I'm a big fan. I know we got a lot of injuries right now, and that's part of the deal, but that doesn't take away what I see from afar. His joy, his passion for his players, and his energy is just infectious. And I love his messaging. So I've learned a lot from watching and really concentrating on his messaging to his players.
It's different sports, Coach, but when you have a relationship and a friendship with a coach like Dan Quinn from another sport, do you guys talk coaching together? Do you lean on each other for things? What kind of conversations do you have, if any, just about coaching and managing people, et cetera?
I've had a couple of conversations about management styles, because I'm always going to respect the boundary. I know sport. I don't know the inner workings of the NFL. But again, when you're managing people and expectations are high, you hold yourself to a standard. As long as you're very direct, open, and honest, I don't think there's a way you go wrong. Unfortunately, in our business, we're judged on winning and losing, which is what we're paid to do. But, the purpose of this is to help people get better at what they do and excel. So we've had a couple of conversations, but I never try to cross the boundary of where, it could make someone uncomfortable.
So the sport, which I'm a huge fan of, it's just changed so much. Like, I'm watching, opening night the other night, and, so many teams have just a completely different roster. It's changed so much. And that's kind of the way it is, with the exception of a few teams. You've got, a player or two back, but how is it to coach in this era where literally there's unrestricted free agency for all intents and purposes for players, and every year it's about essentially crafting a totally new roster?
It for sure is something different that all of us that are now coaching have to lean into and adjust to it, because if you don't, you'll get left behind. So again, it's really hard to sustain quote unquote culture. So, you're constantly building that new identity every year of who are we, what are we? And again, I'm not a big person with rules. I'm so much, okay, here's our standard, live up to it. Because again, in today's young men and women, if you give them a rule, they're too savvy, they'll work around that rule. But if you give them a standard of which to uphold, they will disappoint themselves and their teammates more so than try to navigate the rules, so to speak. So if we could continue to, try to identify people who fit the coaching style we have here at Georgetown and fit at Georgetown as a student athlete, I think you can build from there. And I tell you, it's a challenge. It's totally different than before when you're constantly having 6 to 8 to 12 to 13 new players every year.
Yeah, we hear as fans so often, Coach, about culture, and sometimes I'm not even sure we know what that means. But
right.
Building a culture, and you can. I'd be curious as to what that means to you. But it makes total intuitive sense that every year when you've got that many new players coming in, there isn't a group of players left over to kind of share what that culture is.
Well, for us, for us in basketball, you have to try to retain as many players as you can. And if you have a support system in place that could, help with that, meaning like, in this NIL world, you have to have that. If you don't, it's going to be really hard to sustain any type of success. So retainment is going to be important where you can carry over some sort of a culture. So with our retainment, with Malik Mack, with Caleb, with Julius Halafanua, we have Kayvon Mulready. We have 6 returning players, of which 2 played consistent minutes for us. And then we brought in some new players. And hopefully that our retainment players can, at least speak in the locker room about who we are as people and what we do for them, not so much the coach, right? There's a lot of coach speak, but, I want our players to know who we are as human beings first. The coaching will come easy. If you got good players, you got a good team. If you have great players, you're going to have a great team. If you have a great culture, you'll win a championship. If all 3 of those are aligned.
It's interesting the way you put it. It's almost like a retail business where customer retention is really important. Like player retention is going to be such an important thing to look at when you kind of try to evaluate a team before a season begins. So my Georgetown friends are really fired up about this season, and I'm sure you've sensed some of this. This is a completely different team, they believe, than your first team last year. For those that haven't, quite gotten into college hoops yet, tell us about what you have and why Hoyas fans are excited and optimistic about this year.
Well, we're first and foremost, we're excited to be playing Maryland. Coach Williams and I, we go back a long, long time, right? We've come up through it together. I think I'm on year 20 as a head coach. He's on year 19. So we kind of cut from the same cloth that way with our style of play. So it should be fun. I think what our fans could expect to see is a connected team, a disciplined team, a very tough defensive-minded team, a team that's willing to share but have a lot of joy. I love for our players to play with joy, with a personality, with an edge, and don't be apologetic for being tough. So, it's taken, and we have to stay healthy. I thought we had a tournament team last year had we stayed healthy. And, injuries part of it. Hopefully we have the depth to offset some of the injuries if we come across it. But I think the Hoya fans could expect a team that is fun to watch, is well respected because of how disciplined we are, and are going to play as hard as we can to try to win.
So last year was kind of a Thomas Sorber-led team. How, in terms of style of play, I know your backcourt is pretty strong this year. Style of play, will it be more backcourt driven than big man driven?
I think our style of play, I think we have depth.
Yeah.
I think we have quality depth, and I think the strength is in our numbers. The strength is at some point we're going to have to get to a rotation that's been really, really hard because we feel we have 12 players that can all play at this level and contribute. Yet it's hard to play all 12 scholarship players when you're trying to build some sort of continuity and chemistry that will sustain success over the course of the season. So there's been great competition, and I think that's really helped us grow fast in practice. The players are very, very close talent-wise, so I don't know if it's quote-unquote Thomas Sorber-led, even though he's not here. Well, 1 player, 2 player led. I think the strength is in the overall numbers of the group, and that's what I'm excited about because we can wear some teams out.
You have coached for a long time. You've been very successful as a head coach for a long time, and you just said something that's interesting because in college basketball, you're figuring it out this time of year. And you just said,
right.
You got 12 guys, you're deep, and you don't know how it'll shake out, and you can't play everybody. Typically, in your experience, when do you figure it out? By when do you figure out who those 8, 9 guys are going to be?
Fair question and great question. I remember talking to John Beeline. This is maybe 7, 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. And I believe we played Michigan at the Mohegan Sun in a tournament. And he grabbed me after the game and he says, and his wisdom was great. He says, get to 7 or 8, preferably 7 fast, right? And when you do that, you'll find yourself further ahead than you think. So when is that time come? Oof. Oof.
When you have 12, it's much harder, clearly.
Clearly. I mean, clearly it's hard when you have 12 really good players for their position. The NCAA really helped us by giving us 2 more scholarships that I don't think we needed. I don't know if I've ever used. I think I've been a head coach 20 years now. I think I've only used 13 scholarships once, and that was last year, and we redshirted 3 of them, for retainment. So it's going to be interesting. I would say normally by mid-December, you have a really good idea, and then by the time league play starts, you kind of know what your rotation's going to be. Because again, in some of the games, you want to use a developmental to see and to give players experience on the floor in their game uniforms. But, the old Skip process saying, because it's Halloween, that don't mean I got to give you candy. Because there's a game, I don't have to give you minutes. You got to go out and earn them. And that's what I've appreciated about this group is we've competed against each other in practice at a high level. And today, this afternoon, we are going to have a brutal practice today. So I hope
some of us say about betting, just because it's on Monday night and it's the only game doesn't mean you have to bet on it.
Right.
Wait, but what did you just say? You said you're going to have a brutal practice today?
Today will be a very, very hard practice.
Why?
Well, we know, and again, we know what we're about to up against. We're going up against Buzz's culture. As a head coach, his teams are great defensively. They're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country year in and year out. Their style of play is very physical, very aggressive. And our players, we want to play the same exact way with respect to our physicality and our approach. It's really setting that tone as we're going to walk into a sold-out building on their home campus. Georgetown has not played over there traditionally through the years, so I think our community is really excited to see this rebirth of this rivalry, which I'm excited about because I think it gives back to our people, right? Again, I'm about the people. I'm about making sure that there's engagement in our community. Georgetown's basketball is speaking about, and as we try to restore the legacy and history of Georgetown basketball, I think playing Maryland affords us that opportunity.
I love to hear you say that because, for many years at this station, Coach Thompson hosted the show right after my show, and I miss him. We all do. We loved him dearly and missed him. But I'll tell you what, he couldn't have cared less about Georgetown, Maryland. As he said, we weren't building a local program. We were building a national program, which, by the way, he did. But it's a long way from there. And the fact that you and Buzz have this relationship, you both are genuinely excited about bringing this back to the area, aren't you?
Yeah. And again, I respect Coach Thompson. He's one of my greatest mentors.
Love him.
I love him. I more than love him. I appreciate him for what he did for young African-American coaches that he laid the foundation for. And in saying that, that was the time when he was coaching. Times are so different now, in particular when you put in commerce, when you put in NIL opportunities I'm trying to recruit this DMV area to keep our best players in America home. The DMV produces some of the best players in the history of the game that have come straight out of this area, and we want them to stay here. In doing so, we can bring that rivalry energy to those young men and hopefully young women that want to stay close. Again, Coach wasn't trying to build a regional program at that point in time. He did build a national monster. Those times have now passed. So now how do we carry that with national brand and also a local flair of an incredible game where when both teams play, both arenas will be sold out?
Georgetown beat Morgan State on Monday night. Maryland beat Coppin State. They meet Friday night, Xfinity Center, 6:00 tip. Some of us hate, Coach, that it's 6:00 because this area is not known for its easy traffic. But that aside, you'll have a bouncing place to go into, certainly by the second half of the game. You had this game last week that, for maybe I missed it the last couple of years. More highly publicized scrimmages, preseason games. You went to Rupp. You actually beat Kentucky. And they used to be kind of secret, right? Some of these scrimmages, and we wouldn't know about them. Why do we know about them now? When did that change?
Well, last year, I believe
Okay.
was the first year where we were able to play public again with the ever-evolving NCAA men's basketball, women's basketball, this new NIL era. It's opportunity for us to showcase our players earlier. In doing so, you're able to put them in a tough environment to help you build your program. I actually am going to recommend that we play one, maybe two more exhibition games based on the new rule that we have our players since late May and definitely all of June, July, and August. So we've got our players a long time, and some of the players may get bored playing against one another. Yet I think it's a good thing for people to watch us. I think it's great for the crowd. It has basketball being spoken about earlier, going head-to-head against, NCAA football. I think we need to modernize our game and have summer basketball in the United States because we're able to go overseas and play. Case in point, this year we played up in Canada. It was one of the best 4 games we ever had in the summer, and I think it prepared us for what we're doing now. We need to bring basketball to the United States in the summer, and it should be, we as coaches should demand that from the NCAA, whether you regionalize it. Imagine having a summer league where you have GW, where you have American, where you have Howard, George Mason, University of Virginia, VCU, Richmond, where we can have some of a summer league where there's 3, 4, 5 games in the summertime. I think that just brings excitement where basketball is spoken about, year round. Because we have our players a lot right now. But we bitched and complained before about not having them a lot, and now we may have them too much. So just like your own children, they do get on your nerves at times.
Yeah, they do.
Man. They drive me crazy.
Yeah. So, I saw you got a major commitment from a top 20 kid, Alex Costanza, is committed to Georgetown. This kid, Baba, who's at, Blake in Silver Spring, is the number 1 player. He reclassed into 26. How big is Maryland Georgetown now than ever before when it comes to recruiting, especially this area?
Appreciate that. Let me be really, really polished here and political. Because of NCAA rules, I can neither confirm nor deny what you just spoke
fair.
about.
No, I knew. You're right. I forgot about that. So that's fine. But I know you're recruiting well.
You're doing your job, and I appreciate that. And all I can say to is there are 3, 4 particular players in this DMV area that we would be honored to coach and honored to be part of their journey because we feel all of them are going to play at the next level. And if we can keep our young men home to help us restore, rebuild, energize, invigorate our community, I think it'll pay major dividends for them as they become a little bit older and wiser when the ball stops bouncing. I think it's great for this DMV community if we're fortunate to have them in our program.
Some of us know, Coach, this is a basketball town at its core in terms of what's so important to so many people, and the talent's just unbelievable. 2 quick ones to end with. Number 1, just tell me real quickly how Deshaun's doing. Deshaun Harris-Smith, who was a Terp, was the top player coming out of the area 2 years ago. How's he done so far? How does he look?
He's done really well. He had an incredible summer. He did great in Canada. We're using him at multi-positions. I thought he came in a game the other day against Morgan and changed the game with his versatility. We're using him at 5 different positions. He's a Swiss Army knife. So he's doing really, really well, and we're really, really happy to have him.
All right. Last thing is really just a thank you for being to getting this done. There are so many of us. I'm a Maryland guy, but Maryland and Georgetown people have wanted this as a regular on the sports calendar for years. Enjoy it Friday night. I know it's only November, but it'll feel big, I think, in the moment. And go have a great season. Just not on Friday night in College Park. But I hope you play well. And thank you for doing this. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks a lot for having us, and we're really, really excited to play the game and looking forward to playing them. We have a great agreement and looking forward to playing them in the future as well. Thank you.
Ed Cooley, everybody, the head coach at Georgetown, is a different Georgetown team than last year. They've got talent. They are deep. And if they stay healthy, they got a shot to have a really good season. So looking forward to Friday night. What'd you say, Max? Yeah, you want me to do the IHOP spot? Is that what you want me to do?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea before we close the show.
Okay. Well, you know what? We like IHOP, but you did not put it in your rundown.
Wait,
so
I didn't?
You're going to have to resend me the IHOP.
That's I can
$6 menu.
True.
Where there's nothing better than those pancakes and maybe some protein on the side. I can't wait for Friday night. I wish the game were at 8:00, not at 6:00. You guys have heard me bitch about this before. Trying to get to College Park, I'll be there, and certainly be in some of the places, probably Bentley's beforehand. But still, the fact that this game is going to happen now for the next several years is huge. And Maryland plays Virginia too in the upcoming December schedule, which will be fun. So big game. I really like Ed Cooley. Ed Cooley, by the way, definitely a great communicator, he is recruiting. They just got a 5-star commitment from a top 20 guy. Really, really, really good player. All right, the IHOP spot. Yes, I want to let you know that this last segment with Ed Cooley was sponsored by IHOP, introducing the IHOP value menu where all your breakfast faves are just $6 each every day. Where else can you get a big, filling, sit-down breakfast for just $6? Go to your happy plates with the $6 IHOP value menu, available every day at IHOP, $7 in some locations. Thanks to Ed Cooley. Thanks to Dan Miller, who joined me on the show today. Back tomorrow. Chris Russell's up next.